I'm excited for this, by the way. It should be fun. I get bored talking about food. Welcome. This is Osho. I want to warn you. Please do not listen to these men who are about to speak. Primal Edge Health. He is television for all approved opinions and counter-cultural movements that will keep you safe and warm and fuzzy inside. Whoa!
I think Osho struck, dude.
Dude, did you guys hear that? I think that we had an introduction. I think that might have been YouTube giving like a warning. But anyways, welcome to another episode of the Eat Meat Make Family stream. I've got my man Jay Dyer here. What's up, Jay?
What's up, dude?
Very nice to have you. I've got quite a few things that we could talk about today. Last time we had a really fun show. We talked about social engineering. Jay is the curator of jaysanalysis.com. You know what's funny? Dude, last time we talked on the air, the next day, your website got completely taken down by WordPress, didn't it?
Oh, yes, it was the next day. That's right. Yeah, that sent me into about a month of nightmare work, trying to get it back up, move it.
I can imagine. So Jay Dyer, for some reason, I mean, it's a very innocuous site, Jay Dyer, jaysanalysis.com. Actually, the only site that I could think of that I have a paid membership for, except for one other car forum thing. jaysanalysis.com. Highly recommend you guys check it out. He's got a YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk a little bit about exactly what we talked about last time. I titled it The Alchemy of the SoyBoy, Green Revolution, Starving Ourselves to Save the Planet. And we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff. I got some videos pulled up. We could just riff as well. This is my first broadcast with headphones on. Sorry if I get confused.
DJ Meat.
Yeah. DJ Brain Eater over here.
DJ Steak.
Damn, look at Jay with the soy juice. What's up with that? What are you drinking?
Well, I've had a lot of complaints about having such a large member. I thought I would try to shrink things a little bit, make it a little easier on the girls. So I'm drinking just straight soy today.
Straight soy juice, nice. Well, that's good. If it's in its raw and an unprocessed form, I hear soy is just fantastic for the
Well,
gonads.
this is raw processed GMO soy.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Most effective.
Seems like you're taking Osho's advice there.
Don't say bad about him.
Nothing bad about Osho.
He'll attack again.
Dude, it's funny how Osho's kind of like this cultural figure still. I can't believe how popular that guy's become.
Yeah, YouTube for some reason helped with that a lot. I see his videos pop up on YouTube, and I remember I still haven't seen the whole documentary series on him, but he did have a pretty sophisticated surveillance system going. So he was taping things and he was running some kind of operation there that I think suggests that he had help from other people. It wasn't just his own little operation.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took away too. I don't know. I mean, I'm always kind of maybe connecting things that other people aren't connecting, but absolutely, man. The surveillance equipment, they had those hidden rooms, and then a lot of the Hollywood connections were interesting as well. I know you're a scholar on Laurel Canyon. I don't know. The end of that documentary was kind of nauseating near the end. They did a good job with editing and music and stuff on that. Was it Wild Wild Country? But actually meeting Oshoites is interesting. Have you met any former Osho people?
I have not. Tell me about it.
They're very touchy feely, but there's a specific zonkness, like a specific thing, like in their eyes, this kind of blank. I don't know. I mean, when you go to like hippie festivals and stuff, which you just did, it's kind of a similar thing. Hard to describe, but they've all got the similar
There's a
gloss.
rainbow ho, ho, around the moon.
You sent
So
me that.
intermittently, I'm going to break out with that throughout the entire
That'll be helpful
show and ruin it.
for scholarly purposes. So, dude, I don't know. I like talking to Jay because Jay's the kind of guy who I can pull up any video and play it, and he'll be laughing in a similar way, and probably be connecting things in a similar way, and probably be able to go far deeper in his explanation on why these things are so funny, so interesting, so ironic. But I've got a lot of stimulus pulled up here. I've got a bunch of potential videos we can watch. But first of all, I'd like to maybe just ask you a few things on your thoughts on the history of the Green Revolution. And we're seeing a lot of talk, like, I mean, Trudeau came out the other day and he's talking about climate taxes, paying taxes to the international.
Kevin Trudeau?
Justin Trudeau, right? Mr. Justin Trudeau.
Kevin Trudeau's the natural cures con man. I was making a joke. Remember him?
Yeah, dude. No, I actually do. I just remembered that his face popped up the second time you said his name. Is he in jail? He got locked up, didn't he?
I think he is in jail for he fled to Switzerland and they tracked him down for I don't know, tax evasion or something. I don't know.
I wonder what he's selling inside prison. Like
he's got natural jail implements, like natural homemade jail,
like shank removal enemas.
Yeah, like shank. There you go. Or organic orange slice wine.
Yeah.
made from purified toilet water.
Shout out to the Trudeau family. I wonder if they're related. But anyways, yeah. So we had the leader of the free world above America, and Justin Trudeau announcing how we need carbon. I'm all freaking wrapped up now in these Trudeaus. Talking about carbon taxes as a way to save the planet. I've got some news articles pulled up. Huge reduction in meat, essential to avoid climate breakdown. You know, The Guardian, we've got The Atlantic. All these propaganda outlets are telling us that eating meat's bad, that we've got to stop having the babies for the earth, for the mama Gaia. Where does this stuff come from, man? What do you see this as? I know you studied philosophy deeply. I mean, you got a master's degree in philosophy, right?
Yes, all but thesis, yes.
Okay, so
and the thesis is half finished. I walked out in the middle of the thesis.
Oh, how nice of you.
That's a different story. Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't want to rehash too much of what we talked about last time because I did mention Plato and all that. So it goes back to the ancient world, you know, giving the slaves grain and orphan slop, basically. If you think of Pink Floyd videos, play so could I have some more, and you get orphan slop. No, you can't have meat. How can you have your pudding if you can't eat your meat? But you don't get meat, you get slop. Anyway, so it's not something new. And then I think we talked about last time the Tavistock Tavistock Institute. Mm-hmm. And when I just gave my talk in LA, we talked a lot about Tavistock. They wanted me to come speak about social engineering and all that, which was very interesting because this was a big time vegan crowd. And I didn't talk about veganism. I talked about feeding the slaves the vegan slop.
How was that received?
And how do you think it was received by a giant crowd of hippies? I mean, the irony of this
frowns of violence.
Giant Antifa riots. No, basically, it was just kind of like an intimate setting of about 60 or 70 Jay's Analysis fans, and then the rest of the people over could not give a shit what I was saying. Wow. So they didn't really care. But I did want to talk about that there because, you know, veganism it's a cult and it's spreading everywhere. And as with most cult members, you can't really reason with them. They're not the most reasonable people. And it doesn't matter how many facts you show or how many pieces of evidence. They tend to want to have their cult beliefs. But I know that when I can read globalists like Alvin Toffler, who write about combining veganism and anarchism together, and he says that we can use this in the future for clamping down on society and for social engineering. I know there's something to it, and Alvin Toffler is not a friend. He's not a man of the people. He's not a populist.
So who is that? Who is Alan Toffler, and in what context was he?
He's one of the top globalists. He's like one of the technocrat social planner type guys. He's like a Brzezinski type guy, but not like as powerful as Brzezinski. He's like a lesser known kind of Brzezinski. So he wrote books like Future Shock and these books back in the 70s that talked about where they would take things towards the global technocracy.
And what did he say? What did he say? Do you have like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but a summary of the quote that he, in which he mentioned like veganism as a religion?
If you look up just look up Alvin Toffler, comma, I think I put it in some articles on my website before, but Alvin Toffler, comma, anarchism, comma, veganism. It's a pretty famous quote. It should come up pretty easy. In fact, I looked it up on Google, the quote, not too long ago.
Nice.
I've got a couple of his books here on my bookshelf, but I don't remember the exact spot where he says that, but he does say that. I've double checked it multiple times.
That's funny because we see a big push, kind of. We talked about this last time of veganism as kind of this surrogate religion, as an identity politics type thing for people.
Actually, it's a pretty powerful quote. Can you, if you want to give me a second, I can find it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I know I've got a little lag on the stream. Let me see. Let me restart the stream real quick to see if I can get rid of this lag, guys. Stop stream. So Jay's gonna find the quote, and I'm gonna get rid of my lag.
In 1975, Alvin Toffler wrote, "We're not live, are we?"
We are back live now. There we go.
Okay. In 1975, Toffler wrote a bestseller called Ecospasm. Ecospasm. That's what the soy boys go into.
Wow.
When they don't get their way. When they don't get their whey, W-H-E-Y, and their soy. Ha ha ha.
Well, they can't have whey because that's an animal product, dude.
I know. That didn't make sense. It almost. But
so close.
When they don't get their soy. Author of also Future Shock, Third Way, which I mentioned. He suggests a positive hope for the world's food crisis. He anticipates, quote, the sudden rise of a new religious movement in the West that will restrict the eating of meat and thereby save billions of tons of grain to be provided for the whole world.
That sounds amazing. Like, why is that not? People might be hearing this, and vegans and stuff, they think this sounds awesome. And this is what's so funny to me. It's like, to us, we hear total technocracy, total control, and to others, it's like, yeah, enlightenment. Let's feed the poor brown people that I've never seen or met. You know, it's a strange phenomenon. Now, like, we talked about the Changing Images of Man document. I think that's an important one for people in the audience who want to research this stuff to check out. The Stanford Research Institute. Because that one kind of ties it in with the New Age movement in certain ways.
Yeah, that's a good point. So basically the Esalen Institute is kind of the brains behind the entire counterculture 60s, which then morphs into the New Age movement. And Esalen basically includes a whole host of big-time New Age thinkers, all the way back to the Huxleys, to Deepak Chopra, Deepak Chopsticks, whatever that dude's name is.
Deepak Chopra. The second job I had, we had the Chopra Center was right next door. So those people would come, and I was a shuttle driver and a bellman. So I'd be like, "I bring you back to your room, sir," and jump in a minivan, and I would drive them to the Chopra Center. They're always kind of nice people, a little bit yoga-y, a little bit exhale-y.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I've ever met anybody from either of those groups. Although, by the way, in California, there were those centers there. Like, basically, California's a giant New Age mecca, basically, is all it is. Anyway, Esalen is located in Big Sur, California, too, of course. But they did tie in diet and control with new experimental ideologies. So you could look at it like a giant test bed. Let's try all these different alternative religious movements, alternative ideologies. Let's see what catches on. And that's basically what they've been doing, is experimenting with these ideologies. And one of the key things to control diet is, well, to control people is to control their diet. And one of the key ways to do that is to tie it to religious movements, which is what Tolfer was just talking about. And you're absolutely right. Changing Images of Man speaks of that, which is all about changing man's view of himself. So we transition from maybe older traditional ideas of the earth being here for man, transition that, and this was a key part of what Tavistock wanted to do, transition that to the idea that man is a cancer on Mother Earth, on Gaia. We're a problem, and we need to be severely controlled, keep the population down, because we are like, I don't know, like
a flea,
like
fleas on a dog.
Fleas on the skin of Mother Earth. Yeah.
Isn't that funny? It's like you go from, in the previous age, a majority of the people having believed that we're made in the image of God, to having people believe that we're basically a ball of fucking putty, and that
a virus, a cancer on Earth, right?
Yeah, right. But then also something that's just malleable, it's just to be formed by our will.
Plasticity. This is something H.G. Wells foreshadowed in Island of Dr. Moreau. He foreshadows the plasticity of man and the possibility of mutating man through external technocratic means.
So I think, all right, so the New Age movement, you mentioned Tavistock too, and I think it's interesting that Tavistock, how did Tavistock start out? I think that's kind of a nice segue, because it ties into kind of the shock and awe of climate change.
Yeah, it began right after World War I as a clinic for soldiers that came back that seemed to be all messed up. And this is where we get the idea of shell shock or PTSD down the road, right? These soldiers came back and they had all kinds of dissociative problems and emotional problems, couldn't remember things. Eventually it was labeled shell shock, became PTSD. Well, the idea was, why don't we devote a whole lot of money to actually studying the psyche and what results from wartime, what things we can get done actually for social engineering in wartime. This is something that's also was new to me when I started looking into this, which was that you can actually get a lot more done in terms of mass engineering when you declare wartime, right? For example, the UK pioneered rationing food during wartime.
And this was right around the time, wasn't that right when like Wells, Huxley, and like that's kind of the end of the Industrial Revolution, kind of them seeing like the decay of the Industrial Revolution, and then it seems like there was this thread of thought of just seeing man as the homunculus almost, just something to be made.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it can range from seeing man as something that needs to be perfected, some kind of an older alchemical view that nature is defective, and it's the job of the scientific priest class to perfect man or to alter him into transhumanism or something like this, or it can range all the way over into something like a more overtly satanic view that man is an abortion, that man was not intended to actually be here. We need to be replaced by the bots or something like that. And there actually are, different strands of technocratic madness, scientific, madmen, mad scientists who go that far. But I did want to make the point that it's crucial to see that the role of Tavistock wasn't that important until they received a giant Rockefeller grant. They received a whole bunch of money from the Rockefeller Foundation, which shows again that it doesn't matter that this is in the UK. It's the same Atlantis' power structure, the US, UK, Israel. That's who has for a long time controlled the West. And behind that is a sort of a giant banking power structure. So the Rockefellers put a whole bunch of money into this institute, and it became no longer Tavistock Clinic, but the Tavistock Institute, which then became the premier social engineering organization in the world. So they began to do everything from corporate management studies, structures, styles, to studies for special operations teams, how to get groupthink going, anything you could think of relating to structures of management and control is what Tavistock really pioneered and went crazy with. And they were connected to, as you said, Stanford Research. They were connected to MK Ultra, mind control operations and studies. they were kind of the UK analog of the US version of MK Ultra. So what was going on in the US at different universities, Harvard and so forth. Dozens of universities actually participated in MK Ultra. Other universities in Canada, Brzezinski went to McGill University, which is one of the key MK Ultra universities. And its analog in the UK was Tavistock. So it's essentially the same giant structure, studying and doing different things, testing things on the British public, testing things on the US public. And again, a big part of that was new ideologies and new ways to view man and his diet. They pioneered diet studies. One of these guys was Lewin and, well, actually two of them, Lewin and Rees. And Lewin and Rees were the first guys to say, it was actually Kurt Lewin, famous psychologist, psychoanalyst type guy, who said, I'm going to do a giant test on seeing if I can transition a bunch of meat eaters to a grain-only based diet. And he was very successful at it. That was back in the 70s.
What was he looking at? I mean, what else was he measuring when he did this test? Was he doing cognitive ability tests or like, social science? I mean, who was this guy and what was he actually studying in this?
I'm trying to remember. Kurt Lewin was a wartime psychoanalyst, psychologist who had some affiliation with the government, and he was the premier Tavistock psychologist. He was the top guy at Tavistock, if I recall. During the 60s and 70s, I want to say. There was another guy who did it with him, Rees, R-E-E-S. So I'm going totally from memory here, but what I mainly remember with Lewin was that he his first successful groupthink test, and it did relate directly to groupthink, was to just pick out a group of people who had a heavily meat-based diet to see if he could convince them just to eat grains. So I don't recall beyond that what the details are, but that was kind of what he made his name doing, and then he had a lot more prominence.
So
you can look him up. I mean, he's pretty well-known guy. You can look him up. Kurt Lewin, Lewin.
Yeah, I pulled up. I don't want to go down too far in the rabbit hole because what I found was there's an interesting article here about World War II. It's a study concerning changing eating habits on the home front, lost lessons from World War II research. So it talks about getting people to actually eat. In the U.S., it was perceived as not good to eat like liver and kidney and brains. Mm-hmm. And people started eating this during World War II because there were more affordable cuts of meat. What's funny is we talk about here on the channel about how they're affordable cuts of meat, but they're also really nutrient dense. But it was considered a taboo before this, but then during these years, it was very easy to convince people to eat different types of food. And it says the author discusses the behaviorally driven implications from these lost lessons in the context of the empirical contributions they made in defining what makes an unfavorable food acceptable. So making something that was one time completely unfavorable, like I don't know, maybe cannibalism, which you're seeing normalized now, making that favorable. So it seems like maybe they were, who knows? I mean, when you look into MK Ultra, I think what's really interesting, a lot of people just think they gave some hookers some drugs. In San Francisco, like the History Channel version of MK Ultra, when really there are a lot of declassified papers and stuff, and a lot of the guys who were first interested in MK Ultra were very interested in what was called at the time cybernetics. Have you looked at this angle much, like the connection between computer networks, behaviorism, computer networks, and MK Ultra? Mm-hmm. This is, and I know this is a weird loop to put this in, and for a lot of people, you might think that this is a strange angle to take, but I think we can bring this full circle eventually and connect this with the nature of the internet, social engineering via YouTube, via Google, via just the constant barrage of feedback loops that we're given through the computer. Have you looked into some of that research? Because that's something I've been thinking of diving into lately, but it seems like first of all, I don't have access to a lot of the journals anymore because I'm not at a university, so I can't get on like JSTOR or LexisNexis and look at like humanities stuff.
No, this is a very well-known documented connection. You're right on. Richard Grove has a lot of work in this area where he's talked about the connection between MK Ultra and cybernetics, and the idea of cybernetics goes back to Plato too. The Greeks talked about it, the idea that you could basically create programmed people. The Greeks didn't know about programs, but they roughly had an idea of kybernetikos in the Greek. But if you there's a guy named Norbert Weinert, and quite a few of the MK Ultra doctors. And there's also a really good documentary about MK Ultra and the internet and the Unabomber, which was made by a German guy or Dutch guy in 2003 or four.
Yes, I saw that. It's called The Net or something, right? Or The Web.
Yeah.
That documentary is actually really, really good.
Yeah, that shows the connections between the people at Esalen, a lot of the Big Sur New Age people who were basically tripping acid and coming up with the idea of using the noosphere, which is a term used by certain philosophers for the idea of a mental sphere where you could transfer information. This was kind of a pioneering idea for the internet. Mm-hmm. And those guys were, many of them, actually pioneers in cybernetics too. So there is absolutely a connection. And another way to look at that connection is many of the MK Ultra doctors, like Dr. Jose Delgado, they actually pioneered putting electronic modification implements, RFID, this kind of stuff into animals and humans. They pioneered this. They were doing this decades and decades ago, back in the 40s.
Actually, he said he had full control. He did a demonstration. I mean, I could pull up a video, but I don't feel like searching right now. But there's a video of Jose Delgado stopping a bull dead in its tracks with a remote control. And a bull that was charging at him. Yeah.
John C. Lilly was screwing with the dolphins.
Literally.
Dr. Jolyon West was giving LSD to elephants. So they were doing all this stuff, experimenting with alternative states of consciousness. And actually, there's a stupid-ass movie that's entertaining because it's so goofy. Have you seen Altered States?
Yeah. I used to be super into psychedelics and stuff.
Okay. Well, Altered States is supposed to be John C. Lilly. Yeah. That's who that main character is.
And now you've got, some of the major so-called countercultural figures of today, guys Joe Rogan, he's kind of the modern pioneer of what's funny is, nothing against Joe. He's probably a great guy, probably a very nice person, but for the most part, he's kind of his ideology and his whole shtick is basically an extension of a lot of these things, and I think that's really funny. I don't think he understands the full, historical scope of John C. Lilly's invention of the isolation tank, the propagation of psilocybin by Time magazine, and what was the banker's name who went Wasson?
Gordon Wasson worked for J.P. Morgan. Yeah, and then Henry Luce, Time magazine, they promoted all that, right?
Mm-hmm. And now we see this is a major part of kind of what we see as the alchemy of the SoyBoy, I guess we could call it for this one, is psychedelics.
The more that I get older, the more I go on, the more I see how powerful the 60s countercultural revolution really was. And the more that I'm convinced that it was actually largely either co-opted or done by the establishment itself, fostered for the purpose of creating. And when we look at Esalen Institute, when we look at documents like Changing Images of Man, when we look at these things, it really does back up the fact that the counterculture, so-called revolution, was so useful to the establishment and to the technocrats for creating the not just the SoyBoy. I view the SoyBoy as basically the late, third, fourth generation iteration of the 60s revolution, right? So the boomers underwent phase one. This is partly why the boomers are so silly, was they were indoctrinated with that 60s garbage. Then you had the next phase, which was, I guess maybe a reaction against the yuppies and people in the 80s that were, snorting coke, trying to be Michael J. Fox, Bud Fox in Wall Street. They're going to be Reagan or something. And then it goes to, 90s, and we've got grunge, we've got punk. Well, punk wasn't 90s, but all of these trends, they're all iterations of the 60s countercultural revolution.
Yeah, and the modern SoyBoy, you could look at it as kind of this amalgamation of a piecemeal thing, almost like a freaking collage of these countercultural things. It's to me,
he's like the final version of where they wanted to take the revolution the whole time. And that's what Huxley said. Huxley said back in 1932 that all the revolutions culminate in the technocracy. They don't culminate in your freedom and you being able to run naked in the woods. It culminates in you being a freaking soy boy lab experiment with cancer, and your testes haven't dropped. You know what I mean? So I think that the creation of the soy boy, and I'm also considering recently, based on some of my friends' arguments and some of the points that Estlin makes in his book on Tavistock, the creation of the autistic soy boy, which the autistic savant soy boy type guy is perfect for becoming a coder, becoming a psychopathic cubicle worker. And I think that the establishment actually wanted that. They wanted that kind of a creature. There's actually documents, you can find documents from scientific research from the CIA talking about altering people's RNA and DNA. I put this in my first book back in the 60s. So even back then they were talking about how they could actually alter testosterone levels, alter through diet, through injections and injunctions.
Yeah, I mean, even what's his name? Bertrand Russell talked about that too, about altering hormones. Was it Lord Birkenhead or was it H.G. Wells that also wrote about the same thing? Probably both of them.
Probably both of them. What I always go back to is this. It's a guy who quotes Kessler, because Kessler ends his book Ghost in the Machine talking about alchemy and how the population would be subjected to this dark alchemy and turned into these NPC soy boy, goblin creatures, jellyfish creatures. What is that guy's name? Dr. He's got Dr. Holger Hayden. Mm-hmm. He's got two papers that were presented. One of them was presented at the 1968 Mind Control Conference, in California, in San Francisco, put on by the CIA.
Didn't Huxley go? Was Huxley there too?
He may have been. Yes, he was. That's right.
Now, I'm sorry to derail this, but have you seen? All right, I've heard it claimed a lot that it's on paper, it's actually documented that Huxley was one of the curators of MK Ultra originally on behalf of MI6. Is that true, or is that I haven't seen that document?
I'd say it's very likely, because, and I even think now that probably Crowley was an early version of it, because his drug diaries was going on while he was MI6 asset.
Yeah, he was blackmailing people, and he was involved in child abuse.
And he was giving drugs to people. He would
dose people on mescaline unbeknownst. So he was like the original Tim Leary.
Before Huxley was doing it.
Oh, and then Tim Leary, you've heard when Tim Leary made the statement that he believed he was continuing the work of Crowley and he was channeling Crowley.
Yeah, so I think Crowley was kind of an early version of this. It begins in the world of espionage, where he's writing his drug diaries and testing them on himself and giving it to other people. People at MI6 are like, hey, where could we go with this? Later on down the road, Huxley, he pioneers this. He does a bunch of LSD himself. He writes all his books, promotes it, pretends like he's a good guy, which many of the British elite do this. They pretend that they're, Democrats and men of the people, when in fact they're just the left side of the elite Royal Society Cliveden set, which is basically the Rothschild faction. So no, I don't think it's at all a stretch to think that Huxley was absolutely pioneering and at the top of this. In fact, as I put in Esoteric Hollywood 2, it was Huxley and a bunch of the Hollywood crew that were beginning to popularize LSD in the 40s and 50s, before.
Didn't Huxley live in Laurel Canyon at one time? Mm-hmm. I just learned that.
Well,
recently.
he was. Cary Grant was tripping way before any of the Grateful Dead were tripping.
And that guy was a nutcase too. Like he was super fucking crazy. I remember reading about, Cary Grant was tripping. This when I was like a teenager. Oh, it's cool. It's safe. It's good. The acid's great. And I read about Cary Grant, and it was like, he really helped to cure his depression, his bipolar with this. But then you read about the guy, he was like apparently just a total fucking monster in real life.
He was crazy. Yeah, he was a wild man. And quite a few actually of the Hollywood crew at that, and I think even JFK was tripping before any of the hippies were.
Interesting. because it was Sandoz who manufactured these drugs. It was Sandoz
Right.
manufactured,
And if,
and they first synthesized psilocybin at Sandoz.
yes, and if you read Wim Hof's book, which I highly recommend, he shows how it was actually C.D. Jackson and Henry Luce. They weren't just promoting that stuff on Time Magazine. Like, they had already, in the circles of the elite, they had all been tripping.
Yeah, it'd
So,
be so interesting to see. I would love to see, some of the dark white papers that were around back in the day. The stuff that was not published in these studies, because it is a fascinating aspect, and anybody who's engaged in these so-called psychedelics, or people call them entheogens. Let's look at another one of these propaganda terms for it. I'm not saying that they're all bad or that everything about it is terrible, but it's like it is very, very obvious that this is a cultural programming tool, and it's been used for thousands of years as such, as initiation into the mysteries, right? I mean, this is like Huxley, and then they talked about they really kind of romanticized the Eleusinian mysteries, or how do you say it? Eleusinian mysteries of
Eleusinian, yeah,
I
right.
don't know, who knows how you say it, but when these are tools that have been used for thousands of years. In the Maya, they would use them. They would actually trip out on their priests would be tripping
Right.
balls on these drugs and sacrificing human beings and eating their organs at the top of pyramids on request of the gods, of course, because the crops weren't growing, the weather was changing, all these scary things were happening in the sky that people couldn't understand. And what do you think? Do you like that film Apocalypto? It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's funny you said that, because we were just talking about Apocalypto the other day. Well, when I was at that hippie rally, when I was doing my talk, I was just looking around thinking. By the way, there was no other tent or booth. There was hundreds, probably 100 booths at this place. No other booth had any books. What does that tell you?
What are they selling?
Nobody at
Necklaces?
this thing reads. No books. We don't do books.
What do
I
they
was the
sell?
only bookseller there.
What are all the hippies selling? Crystals and drugs?
Crystals, drugs, clothes. It's like a big fashion show.
Oh
Bunch of
yeah, because it's super important that you look the part when you're getting spiritual, right?
yeah.
It's super
So
important.
and I was in Topanga Canyon, and it has its own style. Like the style of the canyon is different from L.A. style or whatever. So if you live in the canyon, presumably you're basically a rich hippie. So this is like the millionaire hippie.
For sure. No, you have like an old truck, but it's like a 1977 Ford F100 that's like perfectly built with a new Coyote engine in it. And it's like, you've got like a nice house and you call it a barn, and you
That my
call
dad bought me. My dad bought me. I live in a 5-story tent out back that my dad built. Yeah.
it's like my dad refuses to let me use his boat this weekend. He's such a fucking asshole. He hates me. I hate him. Yeah, dude. No, that area is funny. Had a buddy who he was like he had a normal family, and he lived in Malibu Canyon, not like Topanga Canyon or anything, but he lived near
That's
Will Smith and all
yeah.
that. He had a normal family. They had horses and stuff, but they had their land for a long time. But it was funny just how he talked about how the neighborhood was. He was just like, dude, it's so fucking weird. Like, all these people are so loaded. Will Smith's house right there. Mel Gibson lives up there. It's just like strange place.
Yeah. No, yeah, we were over. This is David Lynch is near there. Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks.
Yep.
Cheryl Lee is there. They weren't at the event, but I'm saying that they live over there too. But yeah, that's where were we going with it?
Well, we're talking about drug culture, hippie culture. You
I
were the
was
only
just saying,
book.
yeah, how easily manipulated a lot of these people are, because I mean, there's nothing counterculture about any of this. They're all going along with the same fashions, the same styles. They all dress the same. Nothing unique about it. And then when you look, as you said, into the forefathers of counterculture, especially Tim Leary, I mean, tune in, turn down, drop out, basically be a deadhead, be a mindless idiot. Come on. This is ridiculous. How could you not see that that's
Do you
social
think they
engineering? And
actually gamed these things, like using cybernetics and using networks in behaviorist studies? Like, because if you took a group of 200 people back then, and you were to start administering LSD and creating feedback loops using simple computer networks and stuff, and like approval, disapproval, like now you have like, dislike, smiley face emoji, that. I wonder if they didn't start doing biofeedback and actually
mm,
measuring people's, doing EEGs and stuff while doing these feedback games back then. Like if the internet, if the start of the internet and social media had its roots in some of these behaviorist studies done in the 60s, 50s under MK
right.
Ultra, to me it just seems like it's the natural extension of it.
I would not be surprised. I bet you're probably spot on there. And in fact, let's not forget that behaviorism as a school also got its money and its funding from Rockefeller, Watson, especially B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner was absolutely a Rockefeller man. They put everything behind him. They really believed in his pragmatic, operant conditioning, behaviorist type approach. And what you're talking about with this idea of the feedback loop, it makes perfect sense with Skinnerian thought, because
Hmm.
you're basically just a receptacle, and then you're only going to put out what's put into you. There's not any soul, there's no mind, there's no creative
Yeah.
free will agent there. It's just a repeat mechanism. So that is absolutely what social engineering or social media is for, is to create the feedback, the to program the people basically. So
Hmm.
it makes perfect sense. I would not be surprised if so. Basically, social media, you could say, is just Skinnerian operant conditioning.
Right. And then
Absolutely.
and you have the centralized hub where it's like you have the panopticon built into it too, as like
Right.
holographically, because you have Google, YouTube. They don't tell you what is accepted. You just know
Have
that
to.
if you say certain things like, "Oh, that's
Right.
fake," or "that event didn't happen," then you're going to get fucking kicked off into platforms. You're going to
Yep.
you lose your personhood. So I really think we could be seeing exactly that, and the creation of the Soy Boy could be going on right under our noses, right here in the lovely YouTube community.
Well, don't forget too that if somebody wants hard evidence, if you, I looked this up about 3 years ago. I'm assuming it's still there. It may not be. I don't know. Maybe scrub. But if you look up Dr. Holger Hayden, Hyden, his papers on manipulating RNA and DNA and actually flipping genders, like not literally, but like making males more feminine and
Hmm.
females more masculine. He has scientific journal papers on doing this from the 60s. Uh, so, I mean, what does that tell you? And he's presenting them at the CIA mind control conference. I mean, come on. This is like, it's a no brainer.
See, and it was funny is because there's a few people in the chat here talking about how much they like psychedelics. You can tell who's done them after doing them. Haha, Jim Carrey. The iPhone is running off psychedelics, and the Beatles, our ancestors. I don't know what that guy's talking about. He sounds like he's a little bit high on that hippie juice right now. Um, but someone says, okay, well, Skinner, having been Rockefeller funded, psych major here. My mind is being blown. Psych major, man. You ever take psych courses in undergrad? How disheartening is that to realize that everybody teaching psychology doesn't know a fucking thing about humanity at all? You look into
It's
their
like
eyes.
economics classes at college too, right?
Broke ass professors, purple
Yeah,
hair and
like
shit.
a grad professor's going to tell you, like, compared to, like a billionaire.
They're like, you has zero because the patriarchy. Um,
Yeah, right.
so yeah, so I think that's interesting. Skinner, didn't he keep his daughter in a box, in a cage?
There's a story that he did that. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, these a lot of, again, Alfred Kinsey, pedo, Rockefeller funded, follows Crowley.
Was there a
Cro-
connection to Marilyn Monroe and Skinner? Who was Marilyn Monroe's psychiatrist? Do you know? I know this is kind of trivia stuff, but recently I was hearing a little bit about the connection between Marilyn Monroe and she had a psychiatrist who was highly
yes.
connected to a lot of these networks. I forget who it was, but
No. Yeah. It's one of the big.
these major
It's
guys.
one of the big name guys,
He was
but
a
I can't remember who.
behaviorist, and then he was working with
J.B.
her.
Watson, maybe.
Maybe, and then she killed herself kind of under his watch, and this was kind of
Okay.
in the heyday of that MK Ultra stuff. But okay, anyway, so we got people talking about all these research chemical now. Someone's like 2CE is great. All these research chemicals, man. These things are crazy. I can't believe people are taking these. Um, Please, people, don't take these damn research chemicals. 2C2T754C3PO. It is not. You don't know what you're taking, guys. Okay, so back to the task at hand, the alchemy of the soy boy. So Tim Leary, I think that's an interesting connection. We're going all over the place here, but we're weaving a nice little tapestry. So Tim Leary, the connections to Tavistock, the obvious MK Ultra connections, him being Harvard professor at the height of the movement, being promoted by Time Life. Tim Leary was like he was like the first internet guy. I don't know if anybody, like, have you ever read some of his work is almost unreadable. It's ridiculous, but he was pioneering this idea of the internet in like the 80s.
Well, that's because he was hanging out with these people into cybernetics and the people from Esalen who had been talking about the possibility of tapping into the noosphere. So I wouldn't credit Tim Leary as some genius figuring this out. He was just in the circles of people in DARPA level type stuff who had been batting these ideas around. Plus, the internet it already existed in the 60s, so he probably heard about this, already existing. The military was already sending information packets through ARPANET back in the 60s. So, and it was actually at the original ARPANET connected Stanford Research, MIT, some California, the Stanford's out there, and it connected MIT and then a couple other universities. So he was probably it might have even been Harvard too. Mm-hmm. So he was probably at a university where they had the internet back then.
That's just so wild. And to see like the fruits of that, and then to see now with the internet, and we're seeing another push. I don't know if you noticed this too, but there's another big push for normalizing so-called psychedelics. Mm-hmm. You've got MAPS, which is run by this guy. Have you looked into MAPS, like the guy that runs MAPS?
Somebody brought this up to me the other day, but no, it's new to me.
Rick Doblin. I mean, there's some old interviews with him where he's talking about how the CIA tried to recruit him back in the day, but he was like, no, I'm not going to join you. I'm going to go work at the FDA. He worked at the FDA, and I believe he testified before Congress to have MDMA made illegal. And I believe he actually was pushing for MDMA to be made illegal back in the day, and then switched his tune, and now is advocating for legal MDMA, but administered by psychiatrists. So, I mean, and we're seeing like a big move, even in, the health world. You see a lot of people promoting Burning Man, psychedelics. There's like this thing of like psychedelics, polyamory, and a lot of these things are kind of coalescing into this alchemical creation of the so-called soy boy. So last time we talked a lot about diet, and it seems like this time we're talking a little bit more about the other cultural phenomenon making the modern man or boy, or de-manning the modern man. But I mean, are there any other aspects of this that you think are relevant to looking at? I mean, you've got drugs, internet.
Well, there is also the occult or esoteric side of it that we could talk about too, which ties in the drugs, it ties in the diet, it ties in the social engineering, and the New Age really comes out of the Lodge, Freemasonry, and it comes out of Crowleyism. Crowley was the first to really promote the idea that we're going to go into a new aeon. Crowley is the father of the hippie movement. He's the father of the gay rights movement. He's the father of NAMBLA.
How is he the father of the hippie movement?
Because the hippie movement, in its combination of drugs and the people who promoted it, were self-consciously drawing on and promoting Crowley, especially somebody like Tim Leary. Most of the rock stars who really promoted the 60s counterculture, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, they were self-consciously, at least to varying degrees, Crowleyans. Many people in the establishment who promoted the counterculture were, to varying degrees, Crowleyans. And then, I mean, Crowley's influence goes all the way into pop culture, rap music, heavy metal. I mean, Crowley's everywhere in metal. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that Crowley said, let's start the hippie movement, and then 10 years, 20, 30 years later. No, I'm saying that it's kind of a combination of ideology and ideas. Like the first mention of the New Age is like the Masonic Scottish Rite Journal. Helena Blavatsky, the famous occultic theosophist con woman, talks about the coming of the New Age. So
And
a
she
lot of people
wasn't she really connected with a lot of the British aristocracy as well as
she was probably
German?
British intelligence. A lot.
Yeah.
So was Crowley.
And
So it's
Hitler
not an
really
accident.
Hitler drew a lot from Blavatsky and the Secret Doctrine.
Yeah,
Sorry,
for the mythology of the Reich and all that.
exactly.
Um, Alfred Rosenberg concocted a lot of that stuff from Theosophy. So what I'm saying is that the Crowleyan spirit kind of undergirds the counterculture movement, and one of the ironies of it is that the Crowleyan spirit is not just drugs and free love and all this stuff. He was very much an elitist. He was very much a member of British elite society, or he viewed himself as one of the elite, and so he actually believed that the masses should be crushed under a giant sort of empire. The slave shall serve, he says. If you're a slave, you deserve it. You get what you deserve. So
Well,
what
he's
I'm
an
saying is
interesting
that,
character too, because he seemed like he actually. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I'm just gonna say in the background of this new aeon, this new age, is a figure who is completely laughing at the idea. That's for the masses. That's the outer portico lie that you're told that you're part of this new age. Whereas in the background, it's really run by the secret chiefs, the secret elite, um, intelligence agents, technocrats, billionaires, trillionaires.
It's funny. I thought you were going to actually say another thing that Crowley is not really given credit for is I thought you were going to say yoga, because
Oh, he is. You're right.
right. I mean, that's to me that's one of the he was
Good point.
one of the major proponents of yoga.
Yeah, but he was bringing that to the West before Mahesh Yogi and the Beatles were.
Yeah,
Uh,
and he paved the way for that.
right.
He's
Um,
also got connections to the Beatles as well. He's on the front of the Beatles albums, and seems to have possibly been an influence on lovely men like what's his face, the guy that liked to go to he worked at all the hospitals, the philanthropist, the
oh,
British.
Savile?
Savile, yeah, there seem to be some possible connections, especially ideologically and ceremonially,
Yeah.
to Savile in the way that guy went about it.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised. Absolutely. He's attracted a wide dearth of weird people, and powerful people. So, it's an ideology that can be used in different ways. Anyway, but I gotta use the bathroom really quick. Can we take a break for a second?
Yeah, you could bring the camera in there if you want.
Go piss really quick.
Okay, you could show us if you want. Show the audience. You're talking about your
No,
huge
that's why I'm
dong
drinking the soy
earlier.
juice. I don't want to scare the women in the audience
Okay.
with that kind of stuff.
All right. No, I'll pull the YouTube. Actually, we'll just.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, man. All right, guys. So let's jump over here to the chat. See what people are talking about here. Shamanism is an invention of Western anthropologists, says Anthony. Well, it's not an invention of Western anthropologists. The word shamanism is a Western term. Here actually in South America, they don't consider themselves shamans. These guys, they consider themselves sorcerers. Quite literally, they consider themselves sorcerers. They call each other brujos. They call each other witches. And they're involved in spiritual battle here in the jungles. It's not about enlightening people with ayahuasca. It's about power. So I got quite a few people talking about how awesome they think psychedelics are. It's like, look, if you think these things are great, all good. But, the guy who actually brought ayahuasca to the modern and look, I used to be all for it. I used to think if I could just sprinkle a little LSD on everybody in the world, we could figure all of it out, right? But this is kind of the spiritual deception that I would say that these things bring about. They make you think that you're enlightened. They make you think. They make you feel comfortable. They make you happy. They give you feelings. They give you an experience, right? They give you the spiritual experience. They don't give you a spiritual life. And a lot of people end up just taking that and just building this whole false reality around it. Like, oh, I wear pretty colors now. I wear Shipibo gear. My shaman told me that every time I have a negative thought, if I just close my eyes and envision his beautiful face, and I can watch Don Carlos or Don Jim sprinkle his perfume on me in ceremony. Right? It's like when you look at the ceremonies now, like the actual ceremonies that go on, Most of them are administered by Westerners who've been here for 3 to 5 months. I'm sorry, or 3 to 5 years, who've been in South America for a few years. They met a couple dudes in the jungle who were down to take a bunch of their money or all of their money. And they study under these so-called shamans. They call them curanderos. They study under the curanderos. And then they start giving other people drugs. But when you look at the actual culture around the so-called shamanism here in the jungles, it's all spiritual warfare. And that's what these Westerners who are coming here and getting their doses of ayahuasca don't understand, is that the people that are giving it to them don't care about anything other than power. Okay? Carnival says people in Ecuador talk about brujos using San Pedro. So Carnival also lives in Ecuador, and he's over in the chat, and he understands exactly what I'm talking about. You Westerners coming down here to South America thinking you're going to get enlightenment, you're coming down here and you're getting fucking spiritually molested. That's all you're doing. You're coming down here, and these freaking Westerners who've maybe been down here for half a generation, if you're lucky, you know, like some of these guys being popularized down in Peru, they might have been here for 20 or 30 years. But these are just fried out old hippies who like to dose up, and they come down here and they want to dose you up, and they want to feel up some chicks, and they want to feel powerful, and they, you know, they'll let you snort some DMT out of a human bone that they tell you is an old shaman's bone. It's like this shit. These people have skulls and shit on their little mesas that you come up and bow to. Why do you think there's a ceremonial aspect to it that's so legalistic, people? You're not dealing with real spirituality. You're dealing with spiritual experiences. And there's a lot of shit that goes on behind the scenes with these folks that are administering their drugs to you. And if you knew what they really think about you, you wouldn't be fucking sitting down drinking ayahuasca with, you know, white man Don Howard with his fucking feather hat and his bottle of booze that he's drinking while he gives you ayahuasca and doesn't even drink it himself. That's what a lot of these guys
gurus. Guru boomers, right?
Exactly, man. And it's sad. There's a lot of people getting really fleeced by this stuff. But
yeah, is there a con man element too, where they're like, you know, by the way, you know, this is a $30, you know, experience. Absolutely. $50 experience.
Well, I mean, we're talking $1,500 retreats for a week-long ayahuasca experience, where these guys are $1,500. Sometimes it's a 7-day, and all they feed people is rice and plantains. So they make you sleep in a tent. A lot of the times you bring your own tent, and you get to hang out with these beautiful shamans. And what you do is you pay $1,500. They give you drugs like 5 or 7 times that cost them nothing to make because it's just some plants. And they feed you nothing but rice and plantains to get you nice and open to the experience. So you don't get any fats, no oils, no animal foods, a little bit of lean chicken sometimes in the dieta. The diet's a part of it because it's about priming your vessel for the reception of what they would consider spiritual energy.
So you're seeing firsthand this kind of a thing in this microcosm of these boomer gurus. And I'm saying that, you know, what I've said for a long time was it looks to me like what social engineers, the technocrats, the CIA, what they did was when they sent their men, Gordon Wasson and others, down to Central Latin America, I think Carlos Castaneda was another one of these characters. Mm-hmm. They were studying how the religions worked to basically control the population there.
Absolutely.
And then they brought that back, and you want to say, well, how does that apply to modern America? The big pharma is who exported that to the entire country. So the entire country is under a large-scale shamanic curse from like the big pharma and the CIA and the establishment. That's what I view it as.
That's very, very interesting. I think that's a really interesting theory. And if you were to write an essay on that, I'm sure that you could flesh that out really well. Because actually, yeah, when you look at, all right, so say you look at the results of if you give 10 million doses of LSD to a certain population that's been programmed in a certain way by certain media to receive the message in a specific way and to open up their senses to tune on, turn in, drop out. I mean, you even had somebody mentioned earlier, and then I re-mentioned it. William Burroughs was the guy who first brought ayahuasca into popularity through his book. I think he wrote about it in, it wasn't Howl, another one of his disgusting pieces of literature that NAMBLA member William Burroughs He brought this to popularity. But anyways, this is not supposed to be about just me. I'm not bashing drugs. I'm not here to bash, but I'm telling you my perspective on these things. And I think that I think Jay's definitely onto something there. when you look at like the cultural waves that got created by it, maybe it's predictable. Maybe if you take 100 people and you do behaviorist studies with LSD, there will be a certain algorithmically predictable behavior of many of them, and that could be extrapolated into society and then change society through that.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I mean, I haven't delved super deep into cybernetics, so I'm not really anything approaching expert on that. But I know that both of the books that were written about MK Ultra in the 70s, kind of the two pioneer books on it, the Walter Boert Operation Mind Control book and the John Marks CIA and the Search for the Manchurian Candidate book, they both kind of go into the fact that what MK Ultra moved into was electromagnetic tech, implantable chips, implantable RFID, cybernetics. That is a big part of it. The brain human computer interface stuff, that's all part of it. The Salk Institute. And what you start to realize is that most of these programs, whether it be, say over here you've got geoengineering and altering the biosphere, you might think, oh, that's something over there. And then you've got over here Manhattan Project, and then you've got over here MK Ultra. Actually, a lot of these programs are not disconnected. It's a lot of the same people looking at different ones, working in different ones. Some of these are under the same agency, like Atomic Energy Commission. Eventually, all of the geoengineering stuff, which is connected to Manhattan Project, it's all under the AEC, Atomic Energy Commission, which now is like it's under Department of Defense or something like that. But point being is that these are not all disconnected. The system is very much a system. It's very much looking at the interconnections between all these things. Now, us down here at the bottom of the pyramid, we're not supposed to know that or see that. We're supposed to think that things just randomly happen in the world. Yeah. It's all just chaos and happen,
Reactionary movements, natural reactionary movements.
People are mad and angry at the system, and they don't see that. A great example of this, the depth that this stuff can go is if you read F. William Engdahl's book, Full Spectrum Dominance, he talks about the fact that in the 60s, the RAND Corporation was studying the student riots. And they were studying the student riots to see how mobs formed, how they acted in a formation, and how they dissipated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think any of those 60s students that were rioting at Kent State or wherever, do you think they knew that? No, they didn't know what they had no idea they were participating in a large social engineering experiment for the RAND Corporation. They just thought they were fighting the man.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
they still do, dude. I talk to boomers.
There's little mad scientists over in the corner, like watching you,
Exactly. And so a lot of these boomers I know, man, they still think that they still brag about it. Like, yeah, the drugs were so good, we were getting laid. What the fuck? You really think they're just still talking about how amazing the drugs and sex were in the 1960s? It's sad. I got this picture pulled up from a CNN style article. It's called "Designing Bodies of the Future," and it shows you saw that one. Just really disgusting. I mean, it's just some of these images.
That's where so you can see that the transhumanist movement towards the body mods and towards interchangeable limbs and all this kind of stuff, which sounds good. I'm not saying it's wrong to prosthetics. There's nothing wrong with prosthetics. But what I'm saying is that they're tying it into an overall movement that, as you pointed out, relates to diet, it relates to ideology, how you view yourself in the world, your worldview. It relates to social organization. It relates to tech, smart cities, the social credit system, and as you pointed out with YouTube and the algorithms and social media, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and eventually it's going to be this technocratic. I think it's going to be a cult. They're going to turn it into a damn cult. That's my view.
What if it's? I think it's going to be a multitude of cults. Like you're going to see, like now with the internet, right? It's like you have one. I guess you have a meta cult, which but yeah, then you have all these little mini cults of people with different preferences. And
that's a good point. Yeah, it doesn't have to be one monolithic thing. They could have 50 different cults that are run by the same thing. Yeah.
So this really big word nowadays, and it's always bugged the shit out of me. I make fun of it sometimes. Biohacking. So it's like biohacking. Biohacking is what you do. It's like when you do normal things to try to be healthy or feel good. and then you just find like really fancy words to say about it. You can call it biohacking. Like if you're outside and you're just like sunbathing, you can call it photobiomodulation and stuff like
Well, I
that.
was gonna say like yeah, like life hacks,
Yeah.
like crazy life hacks, and it's like how to organize your junk drawer.
Yeah,
Like
right. And
life
I
hack.
totally, I kind of see this. I see this as, like you said, the changing images of man document. When you look at it, it's a shift in language of how we perceive
Yes,
ourselves,
exactly.
moving us
Good
away
point.
from the biological to the mechanistic, the machine. So biohacking, it's like this concept. You see Dave Asprey, like the bulletproof coffee guy. He's really into it. He takes like 100 pills a day because he wants to be 180 years old and never die. And you see this coalescence of like,
Ray Kurzweil does that too, by the way. He takes all these pills.
yeah. So I mean, now we're seeing this. I don't know if you've paid much attention to it, but it's really infiltrating like health, fitness, wellness, the whole biohacking, quantification. People are wearing continuous glucose monitors, which is that's interesting for diabetics and stuff, and for seeing how healthy you are. But I mean, we're talking about Apple is now going to be measuring. Apple soon is going to come out with a continuous glucose monitor. Well, you're going to be able to monitor stuff in your blood with Apple products.
Have you heard me talk about the Schwitzgable machine? You've heard us talk about that on Boiler Room?
No, that sounds like
Okay,
an
this is interesting.
anti-Semitic machine.
Look up the Schwitzgable machine, and it sounds like something from a freaking cartoon.
Sounds like a Nazi super weapon in a cartoon, like the
Yeah.
Schwitzgable machine. Okay.
So if you look this up, this was in the late 60s, mid 70s, I forget when, but it comes out of the prison industrial complex, and they started experimenting with putting tracing stuff on prisoners, and it didn't just like track their location, like if you're under house arrest and you're Britney Spears or something. It actually it tracked their heart rate, other aspect, their temperature, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I've got it pulled up right here. If anybody in the audience has access to humanities journals like JSTOR, LexisNexis, I would really appreciate if somebody could hook me up with some. I don't know, maybe there's a Sci-Hub for this stuff now, but I want access to this stuff. I miss my brainwashed university access to these freaking journals. So I've got.
It is nice to have access to those journals. I agree. I remember that.
Do you get into those anymore? The JSTOR and LexisNexis stuff?
No, I don't have access to it anymore.
They're so expensive if you do. You have to buy articles in there too sometimes.
I know they're stupid. They're like $30, $50. Give me a break. I'm not buying that.
But you're going right to Harvard. So yeah, it says right here, an electronic device capable of tracking the wearer's location, transmitting information about activities, communicating with him, and perhaps modifying his behavior.
It's a prison device that was intended on easing the guard. Like you don't have to have as many guards if everybody's got this device on, and because the prisoners are going to police themselves. That was the big thing. And the iWatch, it's just a Schwitzgable machine.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what's so funny. It's so ironic too. We're sitting here talking to the audience through the Schwitzgable machine to warn them about the Schwitzgable machine. So stay away from the Schwitzgable machine, but be sure to like and subscribe to my channel.
To my Schwitzgable show, right?
So
Be sure
ridiculous.
to follow the Switchcable machine only when it is Primal Edge Health or the show J. Dyer, the only ones worth watching on this machine that I give you.
Is that like your 90-year-old Werner von Braun impression?
That's my crazy that's what, if you think Dr. Schwitzgable, that's obviously what he sounds like.
There you go. It was like a Dr. Strangelove meets Osho.
Yeah, and it's, he looks like he's got the crazy Alfred Einstein hair, and he's got the white goatee and the lab coat.
For
and
sure. But if it was 1966, so he has to have the round wireframe glasses that are like, the John Lennon sunglasses.
That's Dr. Switchcable.
Fuck. All right, so the alchemy of the soy boy. I like this topic. I like this. So we've got the internet.
Also, back when you were talking about the cybernetics and the feedback loop, I totally forgot. That's the entire thesis of John C. Lilly's book, Programming and Metaprogramming in the Human Biocomputer. So he starts with the premise that we're just a biological computer, and the brain can be programmed with these feedback loops, and they can re-imprint and reprogram, de-pattern, repattern human beings through giving them LSD. So he thought, LSD is the key to this. It can reboot the system, and then you can put in the new system.
Wow. No, I've got to read that book, but from what you've said, it's not very readable.
It's unreadable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try it, but it's unreadable. It's
super expensive too, because it's not printed. It hasn't been printed since.
That's because I talked about it, and then everybody goes and tries to buy it.
Isn't that funny? Like 30 people wanting a book, or like 100 people wanting a book, can jack the price up like four times on the used books. Very interesting. You know what I think was an interesting book that connects with, and I got this on your recommendation. I don't know where it went. Jacques Attali, The Brief History of the Future. And in that book, he talks about there being a class of people that he calls hyper-nomads, and how that class, which is basically us, is going to be used as programmers for the population in order to keep populations mobile and moving in this new economy and this new I haven't read the entire book yet, but from what I've read, it seems like he's envisioning this constant flow of population in order to break down the borders of all societies and create this global panopticon.
Well, he says that what will happen is the global market that's created by the internet will force people to become hyper nomads, and so there will be a specific class of people that will embrace that lifestyle and be forced to it, and then that will, he says, help foster globalization. I don't think he thought that very many hyper nomads would be anti-globalization. So
it's such a funny thing, because there are quite a few people who are using platforms like this to talk about, we're on the Eat Meat Make Family stream right here. We're talking about being healthy, having a healthy worldview.
Right. Well, at the same time too, he also says that the future of entertainment and bread and circuses is live streaming.
Yes.
So that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who live streams is, I mean, I'm not a technocrat.
Are you sure?
But yeah, you're right it is ironic that we're sitting here doing the very things that Jacques Attali said in 2006 would be the norm 12 years later.
I mean, it's something I struggle with too, man. I live in a small town in the middle of Ecuador. I'm between worlds in certain ways, right? So you have families that have 3 generations living in one home. Grandma and grandpa still hang out and babysit everybody. It's like you have family. You've got the prominence of the Roman Catholic Church, for better or worse. I would say for a large part in South America, for better, because it has protected it from a lot of the degeneracy you see in the West with drugs, with transhumanism and stuff like that. But now with the cell phones, the last 6 years, we've seen a major difference. The spread of pornography, it's interesting to see. And I do get torn. Sometimes I feel, I don't know, man. It's like I love doing what I do. I get to talk to people all over the world, get to actually help people, get to, spread information. But at the same time, it's like I feel weird sometimes, because I see the whole new generation of kids coming up, and they all want to be internet. They all want to be like, they all want to have their own business on the internet. So every 12-year-old on the internet is like hustling, selling T-shirts and shit now, like on Instagram. And it's just, I don't know where this is all going. It's going to be really, really freaking interesting to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remember in that book, he also talks about that the giant global live streaming culture will help foster globalization, and that eventually there will be like giant gladiatorial type things, like Hunger Games, Death Race. If you've seen Death Race 2000, that old movie.
Is that from like Tarantino and was it?
No, it's like a 70s movie with David Carradine, and it's one of Sylvester Stallone's first movies.
No, I'm too.
And basically, it's just a globally televised death race where people just race cars across a country or something.
Yeah.
And they try to knock each other out, kill each other and stuff. It's a goofy dystopian 70s movie. It's pretty good. Maybe it's 1980, somewhere in there. Anyway, but there's also a I was reading that they want to start experimenting with this kind of thing with people. In other words, they're going to take like the Survivor type TV shows and try to meld that into like the future live streaming thing of like people on an island, and you got to actually, you know,
dude, they're gonna let us actually vote people off the island, but like voting them off is like
that kind of shit.
They gotta go to carousel if they get voted off.
Yeah, right.
Vote them into carousel.
And then you'll get to choose the way like somebody dies or something, like, oh, put them in the meat grinder and, you know, grind them up for everybody else on the island to eat or some crazy shit like that.
Well, dude,
That
they're
sounds crazy, but
normalizing cannibalism. They're freaking normalizing
Yes, it's
cannibalism.
brutalized. Right. So I think you said, well, how does that fit with veganism? Well, what they could do is they could grind up people into some sort of like food substitute type thing. I mean, Soylent Green, that's what Soylent Green is like soy people, ground up soy people.
Soylent Green is people. Is that my beeping? No. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought my electricity went out. I heard beeping. These headphones are just confusing the shit out of me, everybody. I hear my own voice in my friggin' headphones. It drives me crazy. All right, so let me jump over here to the chat and see what all these freaking meat-tards and nerds are saying.
DJ Meat.
Yo, DJ
Meat.
Dude, all right, we need to lighten it up a little bit. Jay, you wanna let's see if I can get this to work. I've got a few videos pulled up here that I think would be interesting to take a look at. Let's see if the audio feeds through to you with my special setup here. Tell me.
Hey Mason, want to come up
you hear
with
the
something
audio
with
there?
you or else? Oh yeah. So we gotta. Don't worry about the fisherman.
Is that audio coming through to you, Jay?
Not so far. It hasn't.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I should have tried to set.
We did it last time.
We did do it last time. Well, I could take my headphones off and I could just, yeah. So I'll take the headphones off, and I will play it through here.
I wonder if he wants to go live. Hey Mason, you want to go live?
How about that?
I'm gonna try to get him to go live with me.
Were you able to hear that at all?
I heard a Australian dude talking.
Okay,
I was like,
we're on it. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I thought you had like an Australian producer in the background who was like telling you what to do. Like,
I wish.
He can't hear you, mate. He can't hear you. What the fuck are you doing, mate?
Yeah, well, Australia. If I had an Australian producer, I could say "cunt" freely, because in Australia, every other word is "cunt" is basically like, it's like in Australia, or like in California, like Southern California. When I was growing up, really, really dumb stoned kids would be, yeah, and I was just like fucking, I was just like fucking sitting there, and like my head was just like fucking pounding me because I was like so fucking hungover, dude, and fucking. All right, let's see. I got to change my audio preferences. This should work. If I do that, turn it up, then I go to multi-output device, and then I have to share
Mel Gibson
screen.
in the background producing.
Former Mel Gibson. He totally lost his accent. How cool is that? He evolved. That's proof of evolution right there, isn't it, Jay?
Everything is proof of evolution. There's ads for cat food that talks about it being the most evolutionary. I'm not joking. Chris hit me to this, that there's Darwinism in advertising where they'll like try to sell stuff as being the most evolutionary advanced version of cat food or some shit. Isn't that stupid?
That's pretty ridiculous. All right, let's see. I'm going to figure out how to do the video sharing better next time for the audience, but how do I do screen share?
How'd you do it the first time, dude?
I don't know how well it worked the first time. All right, I'm going to share screen with you.
It worked good. I saw it. I saw that.
You saw
that black dude in his cult with his.
Dude, we're about to check in on them because I actually haven't looked. I haven't dove down the melanation rabbit hole since we last hung out. So. Carbonation, yo, in a sacred society, morals are a must. So this is like, to me, this is just the ultimate, the evolution of the soy boy. But like we said earlier, there have to be different cults in the global mega cult. So we've got your boy, Master Teacher, Nature Boy, and this is weird. All right.
Nature Boy, that hoe. Right. That's like, instead of Soldier Boy, it's Nature Boy.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yo. Peace, reflection. What's going on?
Making me dizzy, dog.
Okay, I think he might have knocked some chicks up, and they're about to make some Nature Boy babies.
Have a little neck breast and it's a little giraffe.
That was
And then we both have these. You want to?
She flew over.
What's that?
That was her airplane pillow.
I think that's for a baby, Jay. They're about to have babies over at Melanation.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
shit, dude, they're breeding.
Okay.
All right, this is getting. We got to go to a shorter video. Let's see. I like the introduction. There's too many of these. All right, belief systems. Should we learn? I mean, what can we learn about here? I want to hear something about.
They're all good, I'm sure.
What happens when we die? Let's learn about that.
In 1982, Melon Thomas died from terminal brain cancer, but miraculously lived to tell about it. While showing no vital signs for 90 minutes, Benedict said suddenly he was fully aware and was standing up. But his body was in the bed. He said that being out of his body was so vivid that he could float through every room in his house. There was a light shining and he turned toward the light. The light was very similar to what many other people have described in their near-death experiences. It was so magnificent and you could feel it. It was alluring. You wanted to go to it like you would want to go to your mother or father's arms. He began to move toward the light. He said he knew intuitively that if he went to the light, he would be dead. As he was moving towards the light,
where's Nature
Jesus,
Boy?
Buddha, Krishna, mandalas, and other images and signs.
So there we go. Right away, though, with like this amalgamation of all religions.
Yeah, that didn't sound like any other near-death experience story I've ever heard, did it? I believe I can fly. He's floating around.
All my favorite cartoon characters was there. I talked to Pikachu, and he told
Roger
me
Rabbit.
Pikachu told me that he did not identify as a male, and I felt bad. I'm trying to find
Where is this where he can have his cult and have his harem?
I don't really know. I'm not sure where he went.
Aren't harems illegal in a lot of places?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who the daddy of these babies are. I wish I found some clips and time stamped them, but it's like the truth about pregnancy with Master Chief Nature Boy. There we go. This will clear things up.
Okay.
Listen up, idiots. Damn, he's fine. That Nature Boy fine. He know it.
God.
Yo.
He's got that rooster head.
La che. Eli.
Speaking in tongues.
Eli.
Is it?
I don't know.
La che.
La che.
Reflection. La che.
Fake Jamaican accent.
Eli.
Nice try, Lao Che.
I'm troubled. I am not troubled because of me. And the trouble does not vibrate into my EMF. Yet I feel sorrow and troubled for people, for reflections of mine that are vibrating to information that makes no divine order and structure. We do not understand my art, the way of life, and the fear of Eli.
All right, I'm just gonna say, like, this
So
dude's
it's just
breaking.
nonsense.
He's
this
breaking
dude just
down.
strings together nonsense.
Dude,
basically.
he used to be able to hold it together and like give you an hour of some funny shit. Now he's like fucking broken apart. What the hell's wrong with this guy?
Too much ayahuasca.
I don't know. Maybe not enough ayahuasca, according to some of the people in the chat. Let's see. I mean, he went to the wrong shaman. Let's see.
Trying to connect. Beautiful, beautiful people. My reflections.
Look at those
So-
eyes.
He said, we don't
That's
know, we forgot.
That's LeBong James right there.
LeBong James. Dude, I can't. I feel bad because Nature Boy used to be a good laugh. Now I feel like he's like fucking got dementia. Let's see.
He's losing it, yeah.
Well, here he is out in the sun activating his superior melanin. Let's see what happens when maybe he can think clearer.
if we have a painful life, it's
Yeah.
because what?
That's my boy right there. He's back.
Okay. Woo! Nature
You
boy.
see?
Woo!
You wonder why you live your life in labor, in toil. In the Bible, Jesus said, look into the fields. The birds, they do not sow nor weep.
They don't weep.
Look at
don't weep?
the clothes that the flowers
Excuse
wear.
me, the doves do cry. Prince told me.
They do
I
not
hear the birds crying right now, Nature Boy. I think they don't reap.
labor nor toil. Yet Eli has dressed them better than Solomon in all of his splendor. You see, we don't understand our being. We don't understand pregnancy, and so therefore we have a complicated birth, and the transition of our birth is complicated because we live in the mind of something complicated. Everything we do, we complicate it. You understand? We were told that pregnancy is supposed to be painful. We were told.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up these terms.
Have you ever
later.
heard Vernon Howard? He reminds me. He's like the black version of Vernon Howard, who's one of the first gurus of this kind of crap, like the say a bunch of words that mean absolutely nothing approach
I thought Charlie Manson was the
to running a cult.
I thought that was Manson's thing.
I think Vernon Howard precedes Manson, but Vernon had a more of a, like, you know, boomer wear a tie and suit, you know, kind of. He was more, like he dressed the part better than Charles. It didn't give the hippie vibe. It was like before the hippie stuff, there was or maybe around the same time, like the self-improvement, positive thinking movement, that kind of crap. Norman Vincent Peale crap.
Yes, that makes sense. So I've got another one pulled up here. This is a very impassioned speech from like one of the most popular vegan activists.
Oh my gosh.
Earthling Ed. You can also see Earthling Ed debating people in the street. Well, maybe let's see this clip of Earthling Ed first. I'm still screen sharing with you. You should be able to see it. Let's see.
No. So just to clarify, you'll shout abuse at young girls, but you won't have a conversation with me?
Wrong. Back up.
So what's wrong? So just to clarify, would you like to have a conversation? Because it's funny because when someone invites you for a conversation, no one wants it. So hang on. So you were shouting abuse at these young girls? No. I just like to have a chat. It's funny. It's just because when someone wants to have a chat, you don't want to do it. So hang on. When someone wants to chat to you, you tell them to fuck off. No. This is fine.
He's gonna debate the wrong guy in Texas and get his.
You keep waiting for that. Actually,
He's gonna get his ponytail knocked off.
His man bun's gonna get disheveled. He's pissing these guys off.
I get that. I do. I get it.
So there's Earthling Ed, just the shining example of modern masculinity. I mean, he'd probably be really good friends with Kevin of the masculinity is dead, Dad. I don't know if you guys have seen that video. We did watch it at one point on this channel. The masculinity is dead. So yeah, that's Earthling Ed. But here's his speech. He gave this very impassioned speech in front of supposedly 10,000 vegans. So 10,000 vegans showed up for a march for the animals, and he gave an impassioned speech. There's two versions. This one.
Can you feel it as it flows and as it cascades? Can you feel it as it transmutes from something that we only used to be able to dream of to something that exists in front of us, something we can see, something that is tangible? Change. The change that is coming. It is palpable. It exists in the hearts and minds of each and every one of us. Feel it. Believe it. The change is coming. The sun will one day set on this world and a new dawn will rise. Out of the ashes of violence, hope will rise. Now we as a movement exist in the millions of individuals, but together we move as one.
I mean, this is like
and
right
as
out of the
one,
mind of Tav Stock.
we
This is right out of the mind of Toffler. I mean, this is what Toffler envisioned right here. We as a movement, we as a people, we as a culture, millions of us.
Yeah, we're all one organism. Be the change you want to see. It's like a lot of these empty words, right? Like Tony Robbins Jr.
It is. It's all, yeah, modeled on the self-help teacher stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting part of this. Now you do see this coming together. Now, here's a better version. This guy is actually a vegan.
The sun will one day set on this world, and a new dawn will rise. Out of the ashes of violence, hope will rise. Can you feel it as it transmutes from something that we only used to be able to dream of to something that exists in front of us, something we can see, something that is tangible? Change. The change that is coming.
Clown college. I'm not going to enroll in that clown college. That advertisement had no effect on me.
And they should fear us. For every single day, our numbers grow stronger. Our
Soy Wars. Oh.
Another vegan YouTuber, his name is Abalesiel, edited this video together with basically showing all the clips of like James Aspie and these other vegans who have Patreon accounts, how they spend their money basically living like they're on fucking vacation all day. Earthling Ed makes like 10 grand a month off of Patreon. And this guy goes around. So this is kind of an ironic video made by
a beautiful con man.
This guy's actually pretty reasonable, the guy who made this video. He's a vegan guy. Obviously don't agree with his worldview and stuff, but he critiques a lot of these vegan activists, and he's pretty smart. Actually, I always thought it would be fun to have him on with you and hear you guys kind of flesh out ideas, because he calls himself a nihilist, and he's like a moral relativist.
Oh, yeah,
but
you mentioned him.
He's an interesting guy.
Come on and do whatever.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. I tried to get a hold of him. He might have just blocked me. I don't know. I don't think vegans I don't think they like to come out of their circles and talk. But for the audience, tomorrow.
Well, Earthling Ed was trying to debate a bunch of rednecks. He ought to.
Yeah, he does like to do that. But I think the guy who made this video, I'm not sure. But I'm gonna try to get a hold of him. So if anybody knows Eisel, get in touch with him. I'd love to have him on. Just talk to him about the vegan movement and what he thinks about it.
Fiction grows harder, and that change becomes ever more inevitable than it was the day previous. And they fear us because they know that we will not stop fighting, that we will never...
We will not stop making response videos. We will never stop commenting on your YouTube videos and telling you you're going to die of a heart attack. We will never stop.
Yeah, the system is trembling in fear, given the fact that you're promoting the system's message, right?
Right. Yeah, Tyson Foods and Cargill, who are pumping billions of dollars into plant-based food alternatives.
Yeah, they're trembling.
Yeah, pretty absurd. Now there was an interesting. We've got another video pulled up here. Let's see if this one's more interesting than Earthling Ed. This is these people are pretty fun.
Hey, I'm Angie.
And I'm Brian.
And we're Happy Healthy Vegan. So I've been getting a lot of messages from you guys over on Instagram and Facebook and stuff asking us to do a video about Prop 12. Well, we're no political analysts or anything, but I figured Brian could probably do a little research for it.
Yeah. As vegans, we are confused too. Which side should we vote for, yes or no on Prop 12? So let's break it down. So California Prop 12 establishes new minimum space requirements for confining veal calves, breeding pigs, and egg-laying hens. And to understand why Prop 12...
I guess there's a new vegan activism, like just voting on stupid fake bills that, these huge NGOs put out. This bill, when you actually look at it, and I'm not... As a non-vegan, I'm not very well researched in this, but like California Department of Food and Agriculture seems to be kind of trying to increase the price of meat products with this bill, in my opinion. It does seem like that's what's going on. Is they want larger cages for hens and stuff, which the modern food system of factory farming sucks. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's an interesting dialectic that's happening where it seems like, I mean, if you threw a proposition like this, or to increase the price of meat and poultry dramatically, this definitely feeds right into the hands of this kind of austerity, feed the soylent slaughter to people agenda. So they're talking about this bill.
Square feet, and furthermore, it bans the sale.
I'm all tripped up by this couple. It's like gay Jackie Chan, and who does she look like?
Man,
who's she?
It's kind of a bummer. A decade ago, we thought we were voting for cage-free housing, and yeah,
here we are like a decade later.
Yeah.
She's a 50-year-old, 14-year-old.
So if
a 50-year-old, 14-year-old, yeah, and he's gay Jackie Chan. Okay.
It gives small farmers a year to get ready for us. By 2020, chicken cages will have to go from the current 116 square inches up to 144 square inches, about a 25% space increase. But it doesn't end there. The whole goal is by 2022, all chickens in this state will be cage-free.
Well, that's an improvement.
Yeah, so we're going to go from something that looks like this to something that looks more like this. And as far as...
So we searched on Google, and we found a picture that we think represents what we feel when we read the language of this. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
I mean, I don't know, man. This is like the future of voting, I guess. Is like YouTubers are going to tell everybody.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's like who's got the most emotionally... That doesn't emotionally move me at all, but... That's intended to emotionally, trigger the soy boys. By the way, if you grind up a soy boy and eat him, is that vegan or is that cannibalism?
Well, humans, that's a really good point. That's actually a really good point. Most vegans, I don't think, would be opposed to cannibalism. Well, they make the argument that it's all the same. So it's to eat those chickens, it's the same as not eating.
Well, when we did this show last time, you and I, when I was on with you, and I put the video up, I got comments from the vegans saying, "You are murderous. You are guilty of you." Yeah. I like the equation of serial killer. Do you get this? Like, you are like a serial killer. You're just a version of serial killer.
There was a post the other day, and it was like, if people killed as many humans in one day as they do animals, we would be extinct in a month. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, that doesn't mean anything. But I mean, these are meaningful statements to some people somehow. Dude, Jay, tomorrow, so I've been challenged, you guys. Vegan foot soldier, this lovely gentleman right here, he has challenged me to a debate many times. He wants to debate me so bad. I really have.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit! I have such a small. There's such a small part of me that has an interest in like online debate, right? Especially with vegans, because first,
Nassim Amigdam, or is that him?
I think it's Nassim's boyfriend. It's her ex-boyfriend. That's why he has to cover his identity.
I think she has more muscle than he does.
He's somebody has mentioned that before, and he emphatically stated in the comment section on my video that he was commenting on that it's because he's a cyclist. That's why he's so skinny. It's not because of veganism. He doesn't show his face here. I wish he'd show his face. So yeah, he called me out a couple times. He misrepresented me. He said that I was a fundamentalist Christian, which I definitely don't identify as. What do you mean by fundamentalist? I guess, right? So I'm a fundamentalist Christian. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I tend towards more of like an Eastern Orthodoxy, interpretation of Scripture and. But so he called me a fundamentalist Christian. This is his...
Some people say that vegans are dogmatic and veganism is like a religion. Well, that doesn't make sense in the same way that atheism is a religion. Atheism can't be a religion because religion is believing something on insufficient evidence, whereas atheism is not believing stuff without sufficient evidence to believe in things. So the thing is, atheism is rational because you don't just believe things willy-nilly, whereas religion is irrational because you believe in magical sky wizards without any evidence whatsoever to do so. So that's the same thing with veganism.
Jay, I know that this is probably way outside of your depth. I mean, you got like you almost had you stopped at your thesis, you got over it, but you were going to do a master's in philosophy or heavily studied in the history.
Well, I got
of
everything done, and then right in the middle of the thesis, my advisor was trying to sabotage it. We almost got into a fist fight, so I just left.
I had a similar end to my university career. No almost fist fights, but I definitely went out kicking and screaming from the university system like, fuck this place. What do you think about what he just said there? Does that make much sense to you?
This looks like the typical YouTube buffoon. I mean, this would be a basic bitch level 1 steamroll debate.
So first of all, he mischaracterizes God and defines God as a magical sky wizard so that he can then straw man the concept of God, which is always funny when atheists try to do that. And then he keeps talking about it's irrational, whereas atheism is rational. Let's continue. Let's see where else he goes with this argument, because I think he's going to go real deep here. He might just blow your mind and turn you back to a rational.
It looks like some kind of weird Jap thing, like a Japanese game show or something. Like he's a Japanese game show mixed with Nassim Amigdam or something.
This is actually, I think this is the Antifa branch of the animal rights branch of Antifa. It seems that this guy, Vegan Foot Soldier, seems to represent. He covers his face because I don't know why. I guess that's just like his character on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
that's his shtick.
He says it's because he doesn't want to lose his job and get doxxed. But it's like, I don't know. I don't think Starbucks really discriminates against.
Yeah, I mean, who cares?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure your job's.
You have the most system type view. Like, who's going to dox you? Like, why would you get fired for this?
Dude, I don't know. It might be really controversial.
He would get promoted. I'd have put his face out there. He'd get promoted.
I just don't get like what I don't know. He probably like sweeps the freaking grocery store in the middle of the night or something, or like. I mean, what is this guy doing for a job? Obviously, it's not physical.
He's ripping off sticks a little bit because he's doing the bare chest.
He is kind of ripping sticks.
Sticks shtick.
That's true, but at least Sticks can sound intelligent trying to argue atheism.
Right.
I do kind of like Sticks. Let's see what else he's got to say. He makes some funny arguments here.
Is meat eating, and I'm going to make a case for that in this video, so stay tuned. So let's give a few examples.
Why is it all skinny British boys trying to tell us how we're supposed to live?
Here. First of all, looking at the lipids.
This guy is such an insufferable dickhead. I could make a video on him, but let's just look at this one clip because he's about.
So are you gonna debate him? I love to ride my bicycle. I love to ride my bike. He's gonna do figure 8s around you in his cycle.
I think it'd be fun. I think it's
probably
gonna be
a
fun.
tricycle.
He's gonna be on tomorrow. So Vegan Foot Soldier tomorrow at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. Vegan Foot Soldier is gonna come on and intellectually crush me, and probably just I don't know. I mean, I'm almost convinced right now to go vegan just from this man in his boxers. And his beautiful long torso. He's like 7 foot tall. Or he's just so skinny it makes him look tall. But I do like the sock on the face. That's really cute. Kinky. I like it. It seems like he does some manscaping. Like that's, it's respectable manscaping there. So I'm going to give him the platform. Maybe I'll give him the keys to my channel if he wins the exchange. Let's see what else he has to say.
Guy is such an insufferable dickhead. I could make an entire video on him, but
I just love how he says that with the lisp and everything. The guy
I bet this shithead probably has 10 more. He probably has 10 times the subscriber base I do.
No, he's got 8K views, but he gets 8K subscribers, but he does get quite a bit of views. He probably gets more views than me on his videos because all these vegans, there's huge hordes of these vegans. But I love that. I want to take a clip. I want to get a GIF of that or something. This guy is such an insufferable dickhead.
That's perfect.
This guy is such an insufferable dickhead. Love it. Let's keep going.
look at this one clip because he's about to tell us how high his cholesterol levels are.
Checking them lipids. Let's see. All right. LDL, still about the same. My LDL on a ketogenic diet is generally high.
So I'm not particularly shocked that someone who thinks eating raw eggs and eating raw meat is a good idea has high cholesterol levels. But in fact, this guy's LDL cholesterol levels are so ridiculously, absurdly high, I would not be surprised at all if he died of a heart attack in his 40s. So
human toothpick. I mean, come on. This is preposterous.
It's like if you want to get a real physique like Kurt Cobain after his second album, you need to get on a vegan diet. I think that must be why he wears the sock hat. I think Kurt Cobain faked his death and found a way to reverse the aging process using a vegan diet. That's my theory on the.
Remember heroin chic? Remember in the '90s and the supermodels brought heroin chic in. You had to look like you were. Yeah, it's like this is what the vegan soy boy look is. Is this just? I mean, their arms are like they're like rectangular. You know what I mean? They don't have. There's no muscle there. It's
dude. But if you take an elbow, that's a sharp ass elbow. Like he might cut you with that elbow. I mean, really slowly he'll slice you. Not like you. He'll just it's like literally razor sharp.
It also comes as no surprise that this guy is a fundamentalist Christian and he believes that global warming is a conspiracy theory, and he doesn't think that overpopulation is an issue at all because one of the things he likes to say is something along the lines of go forth and multiply. I guess that's in line with his Christian fundamentalist dogma. But this guy goes a step further. He has to purge his entire channel of rational thought. Not only does he block people who disagree with him, he blocks people who might just possibly be disagreeing with him, but he's too stupid to figure out if they are actually disagreeing with him or not.
Sometimes people will make a comment.
That's true.
Like,
that's all true.
Know if you're talking shit or not, but I'm going to ban you just in case.
For example, he ended up blocking his keto raw meat eating chum Sverige because he couldn't even decipher whether he was actually on his side or not. So let's listen now to what he blocked him over.
There's innocent bystanders that I respect, like Sverige, who I accidentally banned for some reason. Do you remember why?
Yeah, I actually do. It was when the earthquake happened, because you always made your videos without a t-shirt, and it was the first video with a t-shirt, and I was the first one to comment, nice t-shirt, and you somehow get offended by it.
And as we mentioned, Sverige, someone who also consumes raw animal products.
That's all he really says about me. That's the end of the call out. Then he talks about Sverige because Sverige is like a flat earth guy. So then he lumps me in with all these other people's beliefs to try and weave his story, which is funny. But, I mean, we'll see. I told him he's got to use video if he comes on. I don't want to talk to an icon of a cartoon character of an Antifa vegan. But he's going to come on, and we'll have a little debate ski tomorrow, guys. So you guys can come join us talking with Vegan Foot Soldier tomorrow, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. He's going to enlighten me. He's going to woke me. I'm going to do my best to present my point of view and, defend the Sky Wizard. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. There's another character, though.
Well, just remind him that the same basis that he thinks gives rise to moral absolutes, such as that you shouldn't eat meat, seem to require something beyond the physical here and now. So in other words, a moral absolute's not physical. He believes in moral absolutes, right? He's a foot soldier for this cause. He believes it's a universally binding moral principle, but universally binding moral principles, they aren't material, are they? No, they seem to be like these magical sky wizards that he has a problem with.
Well, he has no problem conjuring up the magical sky reason. Magical sky reason and logic. These are, truth, logic. I mean, these are metaphysical concepts, so I'm not sure.
He looks like a corpse. His body has already begun to atrophy. So he's Kurt Cobain like now. Kurt Cobain dead.
But yeah, yeah, no, it's really sad to see. I mean, you do see, and you know, I mean, I told the guy, like he sent me a message. He's like, debate me, bro, debate me. I mean, he posts comments on videos. Who do you think will die first, Primal Edge Health or Sean Baker? And you know, the vegans have
I think
a good
he's
laugh.
already dead. He's already.
That's what's so sad. It's like, look, I could die tomorrow. I could die in a week. I could die in a year. I've got a beautiful family with beautiful children, amazing memories. I have faith in God. I believe that what I'm doing is sometimes decent. I'm trying to do something good. So it's like, I don't know. This whole thing of being afraid of death, I think, is an interesting thing within the vegan and health.
Well, they're almost all Darwinists in a very strict, radical sense, and many are atheists, obviously. Why is anything wrong? Why are we not just striving to be, you know, apex predators? And, you know, I mean, you should go eat this guy. Like, you should go just murder this guy, eat him, move on to the next SoyBoy. Like, why not? There's no, you may not like it. He may not like it, but hey, he probably would like it. There actually are some fetishists who have the fetish of being eaten. I don't know if you've ever heard of that story, that guy who was Dutch, Belgian, I forget. Yeah. Can you hear me? I'm echoing, but the guy who met people on Cannibal Cafe and got this guy to agree to let him be eaten.
That's so funny. There's a few other stories.
And they tried to charge the guy. I can't remember what the court decision was, but they were like, well, he did consensually want to be eaten. He signed a thing. So when the cannibal ate him, what do we do here? What I'm saying is that the reason it applies to this guy is like, we're atheists. Darwinism is true. It's apex predators. Well, come on.
Exactly. So it's like might makes right, survival of the fittest, the triumph of the will. These people don't realize that they don't understand what their worldview actually is. That's the thing. They don't bother actually fleshing out their worldview. It's just kind of like piecemeal. I guess it's, you know, when we're talking about the tapestry of the SoyBoy or the alchemy of the SoyBoy, maybe it's more like a big rug made out of the pubic hairs of a million gurus. It's like you've got Osho's pubes, you've got Crowley pubes up in there. You got some Tim Leary pubes.
At least the you know, to have pubes, you actually have to reach puberty.
Yeah.
And the cult leaders at least appear to reach puberty. The minions out here, the foot soldiers, don't even appear to reach puberty yet.
Well, let's see what else he has to say, because this was the more interesting video, and he makes some very powerful theological arguments in this one, Jay. Let's see what he has to say.
You what? Donut Gate's not real. But I thought Earth in it.
You remember? You know what he
real.
looks like? Do you remember He-Man? He's Orko, dude. He's vegan Orko.
Animal life have the same value as human life.
So here we have a French Christian who's arguing for the animal holocaust. At one point, he even says that he eats nothing but meat. But anyway, he starts off by saying that vegans think all animals are the same. So Earthling Ed naturally responds like a boss.
It's not necessarily that the lives are the same. I just think that right to life is equal. Now, and I also say to people that doesn't define being vegan. To be vegan, you don't have to say that the life of a pig or a cow or a chicken is equal to the life of a human. All you have to acknowledge really is that the life of a pig, a cow or a chicken is higher than your taste buds, or higher than the 15 minutes of pleasure you get from consuming their flesh.
But then
That's a typical Earthling Mad argument. I mean, what do you think about that argument?
Well, it's fraught with kind of metaphysical assumptions. I mean, within my belief system, I could say, yeah, a pig has more sentience than a carrot or something, but it's a value judgment to turn around and say that it's somehow wrong to eat meat because a pig has a higher level of sentience than something from the vegetable kingdom, and there's no reason to believe that. So in other words, it's fraught with a lot of still assumptions about right and wrong and making value judgments, and none of these systems can justify making a value judgment at all. It's all just personal taste.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's a great way of saying it.
topic quickly goes down an appeal to species rabbit hole where the guy is saying humans are better than other animals because God said so.
Basically, do you believe that we are all kind of animals?
We are all animals, yes.
Humans are animals.
Yes.
There is no book where it's written that animal life has more value than plant life, and I believe that humans are of a higher value and intrinsically superior than all other forms of life. And I'm not saying.
Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why?
Well, because I believe in the Bible.
But what about the Bible says? What about being human makes you better than makes you more superior in terms of your, but not just superior in terms of
the Bible and how it shapes this idea.
Well, explain to me why is your life higher?
Why? Because God said so. Because God created humans that way.
So as humans, we have a brain that allows us to think. We have a heart that pumps blood around our bodies. We have legs for walking, arms for picking stuff up, eyes for seeing, nose. They have the same.
Well,
animals, pigs have the same.
So we're the same because we have body parts.
Yeah, I mean, this is arguing from parts to whole. So just because we have similar aspects to other things, we're the same. I mean, that's retarded. That's like because we have similar DNA to lizards, we're lizards. I mean, that's ridiculous. Similarity does not equal identity. So I mean, that's just basic fallacy.
How do you even determine similarity? It's like, you look at any biological organism. Like you could say look, a lizard has a hand.
Good point. I mean, a worm has some sort of sensation. So we're worms that we have sensation. I mean, utterly stupid arguments. I mean,
and also, I guess another way to attack that would be like, the assumption of materialism. Like, okay, so all that exists is material bodies, and that's how we determine what is true and what is real. Is we have material bodies. So okay, we've got these material bodies. The lions also have a body. The lion's got a mouth. The lions, they get to kill and eat animals. What makes us different? What makes us what gives us moral agency?
Right. In other words, the position of the atheist vegan assumes that there are moral absolutes and that humans are liable for their actions. They actually have guilt. They have responsibility. But responsibility requires you to have some sort of special aspect to your being that we don't accrue to animals. We don't say animals are liable or guilty for when they eat other animals, right? So in other words, the vegan needs the idea of man being made in the image of God to have his moral stance to deny God creating man or man being made in the image of God. So it's utterly ridiculous.
All right, so they want it both ways. Oh, we're just animals, correct? We're just animals. Okay, then if you concede that humans are animals, or humans can be categorized as animals, so then what makes it different? Why can animals eat animals and humans can't? They still have to explain their vegan version.
Because it's not human, man. It's not humane, bro.
You're not a natural meat eater. But you're not a natural meat eater. Dude, this guy has the most obnoxiously effeminate voice I've ever heard. It's like, there's not many voice. Vegan Foot Soldier, he's funny. Like, I think that he's cheeky, he's funny, throws on a funny costume. Vegan Foot Soldier, come on the channel. But, dude, Earthling Ed, oh, man. The words that I would use to describe your voice would get me deplatformed from YouTube. But, man, what a... Let's see a little bit more of this argument. It gets even better.
Of course, Ed responds to this in a decent way, bringing up the similarities between us and other animals, but I felt that this was such an important point in this debate, and it kept coming back to this, but I felt, for some reason, I wasn't disappointed with Ed, because Ed's such a good debater, and he brings up such good points, and he's so solid in pretty much every regard, debating veganism, but I feel there could have been another alleyway that he could have gone down, another way of explaining this, which I personally think of might worked a bit better on this guy, and I'm going to explain that in this video. And if you know this argument, because I've talked about this before, you might be familiar with this, but I'm going to give a bit more of an example of how I would have responded in this situation. And by saying that, I'm not saying that Ed responded badly in this situation. I think he responded well, but I think you could have refuted the point a bit more concretely using my version of an appeal to species debunk than what Ed came up with, because Ed was sort of more appealing to similarities and emotions.
Okay,
and stuff
maybe
like
I'm
this,
not going to.
whereas my way of
This
doing
guy's
it
pretty
would
fucking
be
annoying.
debunking the core concept of what the
I
other
think it
guy
sounds
had
fun.
in his mind.
I think
So
it
the
should.
first thing I would ask him in order to debunk this circular appeal to species would be, do you deny the theory of evolution? And thankfully he says, I think around 34 minutes in this debate, that he does not reject science, because he says something like, I'm not a science denier.
Obviously,
So
I'm not
science
a
is
science
equated with
denier.
evolution, which
So
is
then
not
we're
true,
on
by the way.
solid ground to start with. But then if he goes on and says, no, I actually deny the theory of evolution, then you can't argue with him about anything, because it's like trying to argue with someone that 2 + 2 = 4 when they're saying that 2 + 2 = 5. If they're going to sit there and argue that 2 + 2 = 5, then you can't really argue about anything, because it's such a basic, stupid, like how are you going to argue that? No, here's 2 stones, here's 2 other stones, we put the stones together, how many stones are there? There's 4 stones. No, there's 5 stones there. Like, you can't argue with that. So if he denies the theory of evolution, then I would say at that point you just stop the conversation and say, okay, mate, okay, have a nice day, on your way. So then we need to ask him if racism is good or bad.
That's
If he thinks that
interesting.
racism
So
is
again,
good, then we can
notice
just...
the religious foundations of evolution here. If a person denies it, is critical of it, doubtful of it, which I guarantee you this guy couldn't even really have a coherent...
He has no coherent argument for evolution. If you were
about
to
the
ask him,
philosophy of
yeah,
it,
so you
history
actually-
of it.
Exactly.
Right.
So, you know, show me the hard science behind macroevolution.
So it's always treated as a religious dogma. Because if you start talking about natural selection, actually natural selection is compatible with creation. There's no reason why God can't have a situation where certain species, go extinct, others are fittest and they survive. I mean, we see this in the animal kingdom. That's not evolution. Evolution in its traditional form specifically says its central key dogma is the transmutation of species.
Exactly.
That one
The goo
species-
turns into a shrew. The cosmic goo becomes a shrew. Becomes you.
Right. And there's absolutely no evidence for this. And DNA, RNA, it does not code for a new animal. Anything that's in a whale will always only code for a whale. You are never going to get a bear coding in a whale, period. It's not possible because the code is not there. It's only on and off switches that either are turned on or turned off.
Exactly.
So
And they
it's
exist. They're
absolutely- it's
pre-existent. So how would a code
it's
become into
absolutely
being?
impossible, right? Unless there was like, a mad scientist interjecting, fish DNA into a tomato.
the Anunnaki.
Yeah, you have to. And by the way, a lot of them do believe in this. They actually go to, well, if that's the best way to defend Darwinism, then like Dawkins and Stephen Hawking, and they all end up going into panspermia because they think that makes more sense as a theory. So actually, again, and when Darwinism collapses into panspermia, we're justifying this shit with fucking metaphysical alien bullshit, dude. That is a religion. That's a cult.
Yeah. No, it's kind of sad though how the mentality of people works, right? It's like he says this is a debate. He's talking about a debate, and his only point in this whole video is you can't debate somebody who doesn't take for granted that, who even knows what his version of the theory of evolution is? That's the thing. I mean, this guy probably has no idea what orthodox evolutionary theory even holds today. He probably isn't well versed in, the biology and, the scientific worldview of today. He's just calling upon it just like a deity. Like he's conjuring up this metaphysical concept of absolute truth through science. And then, his voice even cracks at the end there because he probably realized just how absurd.
This is a key point. This is a key point that every worldview has some faith-based area of commitment at its foundational presuppositional level. So no matter what you believe, at some point in your system, you're going to have something that you can't evidentially or empirically back up. This is true for any worldview. Basically, because of human finitude, we're finite. We can't empirically verify everything. It's not possible. You can't empirically verify very abstract mathematical principles, but they're obviously true. You can't empirically verify something as simple as a moral absolute or something as simple as that the something outside of your immediate experience exists, right? I mean, I haven't been to China, but I have absolutely every reasonable basis to believe that China exists, right? But if I'm only going to believe in empiricism, which most of these people do in a very strict sense, you can't even justify the existence of something outside your immediate perception, including the past. So people that don't study philosophy, they don't know all of these kinds of angles and questions that, again, reduce this down to absurdity and show that even in the midst of this guy's few minutes, he doesn't even realize that he's relying on things that go beyond sense data that he trusts in a very almost religious sense, things like evolutionary theory, which is a very grand scale, grand scope analysis and projection upon history and the future about man and his origins. It's not an empirically based thing. When you start talking about the empirically based stuff from DNA or from biology and life sciences, that's different. That's not the same thing as 1 billion years ago, this species became a different species. There's absolutely none whatsoever evidence for that. And historically, all the evidences that have been put forward, Piltdown Man, Nebraska Man, they're all known frauds.
But you clearly haven't read the scientific literature like Richard Dawkins, idiot, you fucking insufferable fool.
How come Dawkins has contradicted himself within 1 decade? For example, junk DNA, 10 years ago, the clips on YouTube, and he says there's no such thing as junk DNA. I never said junk DNA proved evolution. Junk DNA doesn't exist. It proves evolutionary theory that it's not true. And then you go back 10 years ago and he says, there's junk DNA and it proves vestigial organs. It proves useless junk DNA. So he's literally like within 10 years, and he denies that he ever said the opposite when the quotes, the clips are right next to each other. So Richard Dawkins is nothing but a propagandist.
It's funny though. I mean, when you look at YouTube, like vegan YouTube, or even like evangelical atheist YouTube, it's funny because there's so much there's so much of this really poor argumentation.
And it's that these are very close worlds to one another. A lot of the dying skeptic community, by the way, the YouTube skeptic atheist community, which is dwindling, they come to they cross over very well with the vegans. I mean, again, all of this horde of mindless vegans, they're almost all rabid Darwinists who don't question it at all.
So check out this PETA ad. Can you see that? We're screen sharing right now. You got the what if aliens tested on humans? And this is a common argument from vegans: is if aliens came here, would it be okay if they ate you?
Right. This assumes moral absolutes and the fact that it's wrong to do certain actions, and their entire worldview negates the possibility of moral absolutes. It's really a no-brainer.
All right, wait, let's see. Whoops.
But I'm glad that you're pointing all this out, because I mean, I don't even realize how much this is like, how prevalent this is. This is being promoted everywhere. Like, veganism is just like being blasted out through all propaganda media outlets everywhere now. It's everywhere. This is crazy.
Yeah, no, it's full on. I mean, well, it's part of the transhumanist thing as well. Yeah. I mean, how can you convince people that you have to convince people that they're useless machines if you want to turn them into useless machines.
Exactly.
You watched the new Blade Runner, the reboot. What do you think about that?
I did a little video on it.
Because here's my theory on the replicants from Blade Runner. I think what you could do within that universe, and I think it's really interesting when you look at they're using behaviorist programming in to program, what's the guy's name, Ryan Gosling's character.
The Ryan Gosling character, when he goes in, he's talking to the AI.
Cells within cells within cells. What does it feel like to love? Did you it's like this weird, just repetitive linguistic things with the flashing light and the 2001: A Space Odyssey camera looking eye thing. So you have all that going on, and then when you have the kind of villain character in the movie who's maybe probably a hero to the transhumanist types, but Jared Leto's character.
Jared Leto, yeah.
Yeah, when he like cuts open the womb of that woman, sacrifices the woman, at that one moment. You can see that they're biological, right? They're not they don't seem to be just piecemeal, put together homunculus, like put together from robotics. They seem to be biological creatures, and it's very possible within that realm, you know, that sci-fi reality. I think it would be a great twist if they made it so that the replicants really are just people, and they, you know, they just had to be so dehumanized and programmed since birth when they were biologically born, and that you can, you know, sterilant agents and stuff like that to that I don't know how they could tie that in. They might not be able to tie up all the loose ends with that, but I think it could fit. I think it could work. That the replicants are humans, and they're just so dehumanized that they believe that they're sterile, functionless automatons.
You could write the fan fiction. Yeah. I think it would deviate from the Philip K. Dick, you know, story, which is that the replicants are, you know, the bot replacements for humans. But this weird thing in all the sci-fi, you know, of the bot revolution. There's a video game that's out that's very popular called Detroit, and it's very much like the AMC TV series Humans, which is about when the AI bots are introduced to be, you know, house cleaners and sex bots and all this stuff. They rebel. Right. Surprise, surprise. They have to start the bot revolution. That's what Blade Runner 2 was, the bot revolution. And it's all about how the humans are bad. So we have to dehumanize humans and we humanize the bots. Right. And so this is being done also as part of that transhumanist agenda. And by the way, this fits with this because what do all the vegans say? Just like the radical green agenda, just like the environmentalists, and just like the transhumanists, humans are the problem. We are the psychopathic serial killing, you know, machines. Oh, look at how the bots operate. The bots don't kill. The bots are, I mean, quite literally, they're think about AI, Spielberg's AI, right? David is the good kid, and the actual human who's crippled is just a complete brat shithead, right?
And they always name it David in these films too. Why do they always go with the David as a name? With Prometheus as well, it was also David was the bot.
Good point.
Yeah, I wonder why they're using David as the bot. It's kind of an interesting twist there. And why are these you know, these occultists, they call themselves atheists, but the people who are actually putting this out, like obviously Ridley Scott is very, very well versed in the occult. So yeah, why are they so obsessed with these biblical narratives and inverting them in certain ways? It's kind of interesting.
Because in the Crowleyan view or the Gnostic view or the esoteric view, they believe they have this special insight into how to secretly read the Bible, the history of Christianity, history of Orthodoxy. They all got it wrong. Goes back to Irenaeus. When Irenaeus wrote Against Heresies, he writes about the Gnostics and how they had these very elaborate inversions. They basically just invert everything. This is why the God of the Old Testament is the evil creator God, and Jesus takes on a new role of being a Luciferian Gnostic liberator. This is quite literally this is the Gnostic tradition. So that's why they like that. Crowley did this too, where he thought that the Book of Revelations was a secret magical text, and you could reenact what's going on in Revelation to literally bring about the end times, the final aeon.
Yeah, and so if you read like Freemasonic literature, Freemasonry, it's the same thing. Which, you know, Freemasonry is just kind of a jumbled together, you know, piecemeal cults, you know, using alchemy and, you know, ancient Egyptian symbolism, Gnosticism, and a lot of different things. Somebody's trying to say that that's not Gnosticism. That's not Gnosticism. No,
Albert Pike says that in Morals and Dogma that Masonry is summed up in the teaching of the ancient Gnostics.
Right, and I guess, well, this person, the causation, he's saying that what you said is Gnosticism. It's not Gnosticism. He says it's not.
No, it absolutely is. I've read the Gnostic texts, and
you read the Nag Hammadi texts and stuff like that is what these people believe.
Absolutely, it is. Of course, it is. They absolutely teach that the God of the Old Testament is Yaldabaoth. He's the evil creator God. This is what Marcion taught. This is what Valentinus taught. Famous Gnostics, and that there's different strands, by the way, of Gnosticism. So, you know, you've got like the Pistis Sophia, you've got the Gospel of Thomas. There's all kinds of different variants on
Gospel of Judas and stuff like that. And you have like John Lash. Like a lot of people follow John Lash.
Different Gnostic sects, but the general thesis. I have a whole talk that's got a good amount of views about Gnosticism that people can go listen to if they doubt that. But I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who follow modern Gnostic teachers like John Lash or Mark Passio and stuff like that, and they all teach the same thing. Someone says David Icke is a Gnostic. Yeah, another Gnostic guy, David
Yeah,
Icke.
in many ways he is. Yeah,
he is. But if you read Albert Pike, that was one of that was a trip reading that book. I found it in a used bookstore. I found Morals and Dogma after finding The Secret Teachings of All Ages from Manly P. Hall. When I was in the university.
Manly P. Hall says it's Gnosticism too.
He has pictures and everything. He's got a picture book for all the dumb Freemasons, and this was like 1929 or something. He published that book, and yeah, he says the same thing. It's
I mean, you'll find the same trends amongst Rosicrucians, and you'll find you can go into the medieval Gnostics, the Bogomils, the Waldensians, the what's the one that starts with a C? I can't remember. It's been 10 years since I was studying Gnosticism. But anyway,
check out this chick, Maggie Q. Do you know who that is? I don't know these people.
No, I have no idea. What is that?
I don't know.
Fight climate change with the diet. Yeah, well, here's an obvious one, right? Tied into
cover your nipples. Fight
climate change.
This is what you're seeing now, though. Climate change and diet, and we're going to see a lot more of this, guys. I mean, eat less meat to save the world. Here's Tia Mowry, dude. Here's a cultural artifact right here. Remember Tia and Tamara? Sister? Come on.
Oh, was that like a Nickelodeon show or something?
Dude, come on. It's like 1995, probably like 95 to 98.
Disney Channel? I don't know.
No, it was like ABC during the day when you get home from school. There would be like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then
Remember that?
Yeah, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came on, and then I think it was Sister after. And there were these like two good-looking black chicks who were twins. Here's her dressed up in just lettuce.
Okay.
Taking her passion for veganism to a whole new level. There's so many of these. You got Dennis Rodman. Oh, kid your own. Go for
Is he promoting veganism?
Yeah, dude. Think Inc., not Mink. It's just PETA, so it's like it's not even veganism. It's just dumb celebrities. What do you know much about PETA? We talked about it last time a little bit. Interesting organization.
Yeah, it's a kind of a front, kind of a shell thing for, I'm not sure exactly what. Probably has CIA connection.
Eating meat got you down. Get it up. Go vegetarian. So just lowest common denominator advertisements. The next one's really interesting. It's over here. Just these PETA ads are so interesting. PETA.
Did we talk about last time? Is Skanky Cyrus promoting all the same stuff too?
Yeah, that's what I was pulling up right here because this kind of brings it all full circle with the, the New Age movement. You've got the former Christian girl, supposedly former Christian, Miley Cyrus, daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus, growing up in. I'm trying to find. There was PETA gave her a pig as a present. There she is. And she did a lot of these photo shoots with her, just very dehumanizing photo shoots.
Weird.
Yeah, butt naked with a pig.
Yeah, see, I don't know about her. She seems kind of dumb, but I mean, this is so obviously satanic. I mean, the satanic ethos is quite literally a very extreme version of that same Crowleyan principle that I was talking about, that you're all slaves, we will rule you. The satanic ethos is we are the apex predators. You deserve to be crushed under the boot. So all of this stuff is putting out that toxic message to make you a slave, while the satanic elite will crush you. No, they're dumb. They're dumb. Yeah.
And a lot of these people that, Miley Cyrus likely has no idea what's going on. This poor girl is probably abused as a child. But then look at this sick, disgusting predator who has been outed in many ways. I mean, this guy is a serial predator, Terry Richardson. Regularly taking photos with her and guys like Jared Leto and stuff like that. And just very dehumanizing, hypersexualized images. And then you see, here's an article, PETA cuts open Miley Cyrus's little sister for ad protesting classroom dissection. So I mean,
it's being turned into, it's like it's weird cross pollination with cannibalism stuff, and the Marina Abramovich, you know, cutting open people, performance art garbage. This is just, it's insanity.
And what I see PETA as is just this really, I mean, it's, yeah, they say they're about animal rights, but it's a total joke to me. I mean, who knows what the heck these people are really thinking? I don't know what's really
Weren't they running the dog killing farm?
Oh yeah, they euthanized a bunch of dogs.
Yeah.
You were telling me you had a friend that was, you know, part of PETA. Here's, you know, Miley Cyrus with a pig mask, getting drunk, shaving. She's bleaching her armpits. PETA
Well, you're the swine. You're like the masses are the swine.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The legion of swine. But yeah, there was a guy that he used to attend a church I went to. We weren't really friends, but he attended a church I went to a long time ago, and he got into Darwinism and veganism, like radically so. And this was a long time. This was like back in the late 90s. I remember this guy getting really into that. And he went to work for PETA. And the story was he got his job there because he went into Tyson chickens and like undercover farm. He filmed them, you know, with the processing and all that. And there, PETA was like, "Oh yeah, you're a hero." So they gave him some job working at PETA. And then something, I don't remember what the story was, but something happened, and like he found out that, you know, PETA was like a fraud, and it like devastated because he believed in this organization like a, you know, cult. So yeah, I mean, PETA is some kind of, you know, foundation establishment front type thing. I don't know who runs it, but
yeah, you see the fruits of it, right? It's like, what are they doing?
Exactly.
Constantly dehumanizing celebrities in like a weird ritualistic way.
It is a weird ritualistic, yeah. And by the way, this guy, after he did become a Satanist for a while. I don't know if he continued with it, but it was during his PETA period that he was a Satanist. So I don't know how. I mean, obviously he's outer portico. This guy was an idiot, but there's a lot of connections between the PETA stuff and Satanism.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of very satanic imagery. Look at this chick in a box. I mean, a woman in a small cage, a contortionist.
They're making
woman.
a statement, dummy.
Yeah, it's so artistic.
If you eat meat, this is what you support.
Right.
Because animals are people too.
Well, where did this? I think this is an interesting. Where did this street theater thing even come from? Like, where's the origination of the street theater as protest? Like, wasn't that a foundation or Tavistock creation?
Well, actually, the Bolsheviks did this. If you read about agitprop, one of the earliest versions of modern agitprop were Bolsheviks, and they would kind of have these these acting troupes that would travel around, and they would like picture the Tsar as, you know, the tyrant and all this stuff. And so street performance is a Bolshevik thing.
That makes sense. I'm getting all these weird iTunes notifications. It keeps saying your iTunes library is. I gotta quit iTunes. All right. Well, we've been going for a couple hours now, and I think it's about time to wrap it up. We talked about all kinds of fun stuff. We didn't even.
Yeah, man, it was a great talk.
We didn't even get to talk about Bill Gates cheerleading, killing everybody. But I think you guys get the point. From my perspective, a lot of the stuff you're seeing with this so-called green revolution, the creation of the SoyBoy, we're looking at social engineering at a grand scale that we've probably never seen to this level before, at least, you know, in ours and our you know, recent ancestry. So Jay, any closing thoughts on our conversation today?
Yeah, my closing thought would just be I have a in-depth talk on one of the top globalists, Arthur Koestler, his book Ghost in the Machine, which relates to everything we're talking about. And in that book, he talks about the history of cannibalism and, it's not that bad. It was actually just a natural thing. And he actually closes this book by saying that what's going to be done on the populace is a kind of dark alchemy. So here's a top globalist literally writing everything that we've talked about today into a book.
Yeah, and Jay has one of the best reading lists. His recommended reading list as far as like research on geopolitics, philosophy, Eastern Orthodoxy as well. He's got one of the best reading lists that is out there. So you guys got to check it out at jaysanalysis.com.
I still got to fix that, by the way. When I had to save the website, I lost a bunch of the recommended reading things, but I'll have to fix all that eventually. But thank you.
Glad I bought a bunch of books at your recommendation before you lost your website. So remember, guys, I mean, we're talking to a guy, Jay Dyer.
It's back now.
His website was deplatformed from WordPress with no warning, nothing. I mean, there was no hate speech on his website. There was no, no calling for violence,
No
nothing
porn, nothing violent. Yeah.
no nudity. I mean, just, he was talking about philosophy, geopolitics, and life. So I think it's really, really important that we understand that right now in this digital age, we are looking at kind of the erection of a semi-gulag type system, the digital gulag. So if you want to support legitimate content, you might not see it in your feed on YouTube. You probably won't get notifications, just like for some reason, nobody gets notifications on my channel, or at least half the people that want to get notifications email me and say they don't get them. So, I mean, I'm not half as controversial with some of the topics that I broach here as Jay is. I don't bite my tongue, but there are things that I don't go into, and we're going to see a time in the near future where we're probably going to see a lot more of this censorship, and people are going to be afraid to speak out. And I really hope that people out there are supporting individuals doing work, and groups as well doing work that is beneficial to the cause of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, if the vegans and the green and all that has their way, they're going to shut you down. They'll be like, no, this is a site that promotes, toxic masculinity and serial killing animals.
Absolutely. And, the head of YouTube or the head of Google, or the president of Google is a vegetarian. He recently remarked this out of nowhere for no reason in the middle of a speech in front of everyone. Said, "Oh, well, I'm a vegetarian." So, I mean, you are seeing Silicon Valley, it's trans-governmental organizations like the UN.
Soilicon Valley.
Soilicon Valley wants you on that Soylent slop. They want Soylent Green to be people, and we are being programmed into accepting cannibalism. Believe it or not, folks. So CNN reporters are eating human brains. Richard Dawkins talking about cannibalism ain't so bad. Sacha Baron Cohen. Did you see that? You didn't see it? You remember Ali G and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he used to have some
funny guy.
He had some funny skits, man. Like regardless of where you're at, he was really good at trapping people into doing stupid shit. But he has a new show, and in the final episode of his new show, it's he supposedly convinces a guy that he ate human meat. He serves a guy human meat in character as a chef from prison, and it's like a semi-funny skit, but really when you look at it, it's an interesting little cultural artifact. So yeah, Jay, I recommend you check that out. The last episode of his show, it was on Showtime or something. I live in Ecuador, so I can legally download it for free. But you could watch that, and you'll find that very interesting. And yeah, guys, so thanks for watching. It's been another episode of the Eat Me Make Family stream. Jay Dyer, always welcome on the stream here. You can have the keys to my channel. Just make videos and put them up here if you don't want to get banned on your channel. No, I'm kidding. But I really do appreciate you coming on, man. Jay is one of my favorite people on the internet, and I appreciate the work you do. So yeah, everybody, you're more than what you eat, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be not interviewing, but just having a nice civil conversation with the guy that wears a sock on his head who called me an insufferable dickhead with an insufferable lisp. So I'll be talking to Vegan Foot Soldier tomorrow. I really hope he has his shirt unbuttoned, because I want to just admire that manscaping in his 12-meter long torso, or so it appears. Yeah, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Vegan Foot Soldier tomorrow at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. Go to Jay's Analysis. Follow Jay on YouTube. Send him all your shekels, and we'll see you next time. Peace, guys.
All right, awesome, dude. Thank you very much.
Yeah.